yeah, 10, 11 wipes in, you're like, what's going to change here? Like, why can't I feel this way at level 50?
Yeah.
I want to feel that. I want to feel that
Right.
intensity at level 50.
Yeah.
I want to feel that intensity at level 50. And to me, it just seems like the radical ideas of like, well, how do you make a corrugated hose important to a level 50? You give him something that he can only get with a corrugated hose. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just keep resetting his account and being like, haha, you need the corrugated hose again. You know what I mean? It's like, that's only going to work so many times. Like,
yeah. Welcome to ScavTalk, an Escape from Tarkov podcast where we continue to focus on development of the game, patch note analysis, theory crafting, and general gameplay discussions. My name is Church. I'm one of your hosts. I am a video editor for a Tarkov YouTuber named Daring Marine.
I'm GigaBeef, a Tarkov YouTuber helping you guys get better at the game. And today we are joined by JesseKazam. This is thank you so much for coming on. This is honestly an amazing thing. I've been listening to your stuff forever. I've listened to all the podcasts right from the first one. It's nuts to have you here. And yeah, thanks for coming on, dude. It's insane.
Yo, heck yeah. Thank you guys for having me. I know it's been we've been talking for a while behind the scenes. I'm super glad to be here, and I'm just a freaking nerd at the end of the day. So I love to talk. I can talk Tarkov all day long. You know what I mean? So I love any opportunity to come hang with some homies and talk. So yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem, no problem. I mean, I'm sure pretty much everybody who's watching this already knows who you are, but you just want to give yourself a little brief intro. I think the thing that I find fascinating about you is that Tarkov's like basically your first FPS PC game. That's always like fascinated me. It's crazy, but
yeah. So I mean, I'm JesseKazam. I stream on Twitch and I make YouTube videos all about Tarkov, beginners guides, highlight videos, PvP guides. You know, try and break down like news when there's patch notes, just kind of a little bit of everything. Yeah, I mean, this has all been like it's all been new. Yeah, legitimately, this is the first PC game I spent more than maybe 10 or 15 hours playing. We jumped right into Tarkov, and then a few months after that, I jumped into content creation on Twitch. A few months after that, I jumped into started making YouTube videos, and we've just kind of kept rolling with it. So it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, it's really crazy actually. I went back and had to look at the timing because I think the first podcast was it maybe May 2020 because you met us for you had your 100th episode, so you were reminiscing about starting off and that kind of thing. And I went back and had a look, and I bought the game on the 1st of May 2019, played and posted my first video in January, started watching you guys in the next in the summer of that year.
Gosh.
So it's like it's so funny, just like the speed of people I don't know getting into it and stuff. It's like it's nuts because you think, oh, I've been playing the game for 3 years or whatever, but like in any other field, that would be like no time at all. You'd still be like super junior in
100%. Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, in any other of like the staple games, like that's such a relatively small amount of time, and it's so weird to still like because when I started, you know what I mean? Like I felt like such small potatoes compared to Deadly Slob, Anton, Clean, all of these guys, and then I feel like I really got lucky by picking up on the game with almost like just enough time to kind of have enough info to become authority on the game before it blew up with drops and stuff like that. So I feel super lucky that I was able to come in to then almost like be bumped into that echelon where like now there's so many new players, they think I'm an OG and I'm like, no, I'm not an OG. These guys are the OGs. And it's like, it just, it's all those different tiers. But yeah, it's been crazy. It's been, it feels like it feels like in the past 2 years, it's been like 10 years worth of life lived.
That's good, honestly. It's such a good thing, actually, because there's so much happens, and there's I don't know, it's exciting, and you're passionate about it, right? It's like it's
for
a
sure
wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. But yeah, man, like thanks for coming on. It's super sick. So I guess we'll just get into a few bits and pieces of what's been going on to start with. Did you even know that Pestyly's wife was pregnant? I saw this announcement literally like as it came out, like everyone else, like Pestyly's dad. Like what?
Bro, I had no idea. That was so and as a dad, like I like immediately like DM'd him and I was like, oh my God, dude, I'm so excited for you. I had no idea. It makes sense. He's been like he's been taking some small breaks, and then he like rated me once and he was like, hey, he's like, I'll see you guys in like 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, like Pestyly's taking a break, that's good for him. And then I saw that post and I was like, oh yeah. I am surprised that he kept it a secret. I'm so pumped for him though. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's really neat because yeah, I mean, I know that you're a dad, and I'm a dad as well, and it's
Oh
just
heck yeah.
such a crazy thing. Yeah, my daughter's a year and a half,
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
I wish him the best of luck. It's
Yeah.
definitely its own separate special journey.
Yes,
We had
it is.
Ghost on the other day, who's kind of a good friend of the show and stuff, and
Yeah.
he's got some kids as well, and we were talking about that the other day, just like managing like the family life and content creation is just like how crazy it can be sometimes. So,
Unreal.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, I wish him the best of luck. I think in some ways it's good because he's already done so much and got to where he is.
Yeah.
It does help a bit, but yeah, it'll definitely be a shock, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I saw. Yeah. Yeah.
So with that aside, big update, RMT
Oh
update.
yeah. Nothing's been going
So
on in Tarkov. It's been pretty dead, right?
exactly. It's funny how we can get content without actually having anything specifically in game. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, Jesse and Church, but I mean, Tarkov Twitter's been just like blowing up with people,
Oh
opinions
my
all over the
god.
place. I think it's probably, well, as usual, right? Bit of an overreaction from certain members of the
Of
community.
course. Yeah.
I mean, I feel slightly, I don't know. I don't want to downplay it because I mean I'm
Yeah.
interested to hear what you have to say in church as well, actually, because you guys play a lot more duo and above than I do. I'm like
Mm,
99.9% solo, and for me it makes no difference at all,
yep.
except
Not
very
at all.
occasionally when I kill somebody. Maybe I mean the thing is it can't be funny made though. I was going to say maybe they only have one proto rather than two, but then they'd have to have brought it in and it be in
Yeah.
their rig, like it's in their injector case. So for me it literally doesn't make any difference. So I've tried to take it from a more objective view and say, okay, well, people helping their friends and this kind of thing. And
Yeah.
for me, like if it works, it's just collateral damage. And unfortunately, yeah, it sucks for some people. And
Yeah.
you can't give your friend a red rebel or this key or whatever. But like you just have to play the game. And if it helps against RMT and cheating, then I'm honestly I'm all for it. So I don't know. Does that sort of tally with your expectation?
Yeah, I mean it's really hard. Like I've just been saying like I don't know. Like there's so many layers to it. I think by and large, what you said is absolutely right, where it just isn't going to affect as many people as often as they think. Even duo players. You know what I mean? As somebody with, 15, 1,800 raids this wipe so far. You know what I mean? Like it would have only affected me a few times, mostly at the beginning of wipes. And I play with a pretty small group of people, especially around wipe time. Like when it's like mid to late wipe, I'm always just like hitting up random content creators or people. It's like, yo, you want to get some do it. But when it's like in the beginning of the wipe and we're all like farming, we're like trying to level up, we're trying to get quests done. I play with a relatively small group of people. And so like the difference between me being like, my friend being like, "Hey, I can drop you this key. I found it and I did the quest and I don't need it." The difference between that and me and him being like, "Hey, the next time we're playing, we'll go do that and I'll just open the door for you." That's not that big of a difference. It's like, you know what I mean? Oh God, I have to wait. He's not gaming tonight. He's gonna game tomorrow, so I can't get this quest done until tomorrow. Like,
Hmm.
it's not like he can't help me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so and then when it comes with like if I found a second green key card and I died with it and I don't want it, I can't give it to my friend. Well, that's not really like negatively affecting the early game experience because it's not like the friend you wanted to give it to found the green key card anyway. So it's just like their life continues as normal. So
Yeah.
I think by and large, it doesn't affect people as much as they think it affects people. However, I'm so conflicted on this. Like I have been like just like racking my brain for the past few days because it's like there's so many layers to it where it's it's not going to affect as many people. The other part of it though is like we're working with a math equation and we just don't have all the numbers. Like as a gamer, we're as just someone who plays the game, we're never going to know how many cheaters there really are. We're never going to know how much RMT really happens. We just kind of
Hmm.
assume based on our own personal experiences. So we don't know that number. We'll never be able to know if this change positively or negatively affects it. So it's just like so in that sense, I almost understand the overreaction because it's like the people you're asking an opinion on don't have all of the equation. So they're not going to be able to give it an appropriate opinion. Like, and that's why people keep asking me, like, what do you think about it? It's like, I don't know. Like, I'm just a gamer too. Like, I don't know, have the numbers on how many cheaters there are, or how many RMTers there are. So I don't know how well this is going to work. And, and you just get all the people that are like, we were talking about this in the podcast last night, where it's like 6 months ago, the prevailing thing that was going around was like BSG loves the cheaters because it helps them sell more copies of the game.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
was like we were like, that's the most absurd thing you could possibly have said to me. And they're like, well, you're just like a Battlestate Games apologist. You just support anything they
Mhm.
do. And then now they're like, how could you do this? You can't engineer your game around the cheaters and do that. And it's like, well, do they love the cheaters or do they hate the cheaters? You know what I mean? It's like the flippy floppy there.
Mhm.
So it's so hard, man. I'm so conflicted. In general, I'm for the least amount of interference on what a player can do. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't affect me, but on principle, I'm like, but don't restrict me if I wanted to do something. You know what I mean? Like, just last week, we were me and a buddy were playing interchange, and we were like, it was super late in the raid. We were looting Kiba, and we were like, I guess we'll just reset. And some dude ran by, and we held him up. We were like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm just trying to plant the Wi-Fi camera. And I was like, all right, well, you have to come plant the Wi-Fi camera in front of us. We're not going to tell you if we're friendly or not, but you have to plant the Wi-Fi camera in front of us. And if you do, we'll adopt you. And he was like, I'm scared, and was like, do it. And he did. And then we like took him around the map. And right before we extracted, we took the safe room extract under, you swipe at
Mhm.
the urinal and stuff like that. And we took that. And he was like, I've never been down here before. I've only seen this in YouTube videos. So I was like, drop your bag. And he dropped his bag, and I gave him my 11 SR key card. It had like 14 out of 15 uses left. You know what I mean? And so I was like, it does kind of suck that I wouldn't be able to do that. Like, that was a cool experience,
Yeah.
but it's just so complicated. In general, I completely agree. I want as least amount of cheaters, as least amount of RMTers as possible. We all have some level of collateral damage that we would accept. All of our, measurements might be different there. But this is a tough one. This has been a really tough one for me to like plant a flag on and be like, I like this change or I don't like this change, because I don't have all the facts. I don't know, like, I just don't know. This is a really hard one. This one is got me really struggling to form an opinion on.
It is tough. I think like I come back on this in particular too, like with that in mind, right, of not knowing the facts and stuff, is that, and I think I even tweeted this, I put that I'm glad that they're courageous enough to try this. If it works,
Yes.
then great. If it doesn't, they can always
Yeah.
take it away. But I like that they are giving it a go. That's
A
my
hundred percent.
that's I think is a good sign in some ways. As much as people may not like it or whatever, and maybe it doesn't have the outcome that they want, or maybe they
Yeah.
find their way around it or whatever. But they need to try this stuff. I've always said, actually, because the community blows up about all sorts of things, but I like it when they do radical
Yeah.
things, because it's
Yeah.
it's interesting, and sometimes they blow the game up, like removing the traders for 5 days. But
Oh my
it's just,
God.
they just got to try this stuff. Just do it. Why
100%.
not? It's fine. People read
That
on Twitter for a couple of days, but
and in that sense, I really do agree. Like, I think how you position it means a lot. And but it's, once again, everything I see both sides. So it's like, on one hand, it might have been better for them to be like, hey, we're going to try something to see how much it stops RMT. You know what I mean? And even just positioning it that way would have had a lot more understanding from the community. We're like, all right, let's try everything. And then they would, be better to give feedback. But then on the flip side, I guess maybe they don't want the community to think it's a reversible change. Because if they like it, but the community doesn't, they don't want the community to think there's like, well, let's change it. And they're like, no, it's good. So I get it, but I definitely understand that. And that's basically what I've been saying, is like, I just kind of have to trust them that, like, they bring down the hammer hard. If they see little to no effect from it, they'll reverse it. If there's a really big a positive effect, then they'll keep it. And I just kind of have to trust them on that, because who am I to be able to say how many RMTers or cheaters there are? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I would have no idea. So yeah, so that's definitely a good point. I'm glad that they're willing to do stuff like that. I think I think the other part of it as well is like, was there a better way to do it? and I don't know if you caught last night's podcast, but like me and Veritas were talking about this, but like if you know how like so when we're loading in, it's like loading loot.
Mhm.
And what that's doing is it's literally assigning what's going to be in everywhere. And then the cheats basically come in there and they're like, oh, there's a GPU in this PC and there's in this PC. If all loot containers did not ask the server for what should be in it until it was searched, then it would have literally no effect on anybody, but people couldn't get that information. And it would be much harder to cheat because the cheaters would have to search everything like we have to do to find the loot. And it's like, would that have accomplished a very similar thing without affecting the player at all? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe that
Maybe,
would make it
yeah.
worse. Maybe it would make it better. But just like it's just yeah. And well, and then the whole other side of it, I don't know if you saw Nikita tweet today, but he tweeted today and it was like much more on the side of like this wasn't just for RMT and cheating. Like we also kind of wanted to stop boosting. Like it was
Mhm.
something along the lines of like
Yeah.
it was never really planned for the game to um for you to be able to just like drop all this really rare or hard to get stuff for your friends. So in that aspect of it, it's like, okay, well, it's your game. Yeah, I get that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like it's your game. You can do whatever you want in that way. So I don't know, man. I'm definitely like still excited about the game. Of course, there's the dramatic people who are like, I'm uninstalling, and it's like, okay, whatever. But like, it's just like, sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm still super excited about the game. It's just, yeah, it's like a mixture of it's an unwinnable battle, right, between cheaters. You look at literally any other game, New World, Warzone, World of Warcraft, like every game has cheaters. Every game struggles. Any sort of game where you grind for gear and it's online, RMT is involved, and that's always a battle. So you've got like you're just like stuck between all these rocks and hard places of like this is almost an impossible battle to win, but that doesn't mean you don't want the devs of your game to do nothing because you want it to be as minimal of a problem, but you don't want them to infringe on your experience too much. And that line is going to be different for everybody. And you want them to make the game, but you want it to make sense. And it's kind of hard, So it's just like at the end of the day, I just kind of throw my hands up and I'm like, dude, I don't know. I love this game. I trust them to make the game they want, and just gonna keep playing and having fun. You know what I mean? If you
Yeah.
hadn't have told me that that change had happened, I wouldn't have noticed,
I mean, I definitely wouldn't. I
and
definitely wouldn't.
I wouldn't have noticed. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's a really hard thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Church, are you uninstalling the game?
I,
Is this
I'm
it for
curious.
you?
I'm curious. I would be curious to know why, like, what's the reasoning behind those statements? Like, is it just them
Oh,
saying that,
yeah.
or if there's some logic
Drama.
behind it? But I'm not so much a fan of this change. I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
And for me, it's playing solo. I think it's a non-factor.
Yeah.
But I guess in like the grand scheme of things, like the future of the game, that's kind of where I'm a little like disheartened, I guess, is because I
Yeah.
feel like this kind of just closes any possibility for any type of trading within like the actual game. You know what I mean? Like we got menus in the flea
Yeah.
market. Um, but I've always liked the RPG side of Tarkov that hasn't really been like fully explored, and I kind of feel like like this just kind of closes off. Like, could you imagine
Dude.
just being like in the world and like your method of survival was just like negotiating and trading with people and being, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like a hag, like dude,
Friendly
uh,
guy.
huh?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that
Friendly
friendly
friendly guy
guy,
guy,
comes to mind,
yeah,
right? That's
100%.
exactly how he
yeah.
survives in Tarkov and gets to level
He
whatever. And
yeah, feel really bad for him.
I feel really bad for him too. But
Because like
again, it's yeah,
I don't want to play the way he plays, but
Hmm.
like he like he like pushed Tarkov forward in a way. Like, you know what I mean? He was like he came and was like, this is a completely different way to do
Hmm.
something.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were like, holy cow, like I gotta respect your dedication to this. And you make it work. And it's
did it before
crazy.
Voip as well.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
nuts, right? When Voip came in,
Unbelievable.
it changed it for him. But like before then, he was doing it with like in-game voices and hand actions, like crazy.
Unreal. Unreal. So yeah, I definitely Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now you you mentioned about I think Veritas has spoken about this loot containers thing before.
Yeah.
I try to listen to the podcast after it comes out because I don't want what you guys saying because when you're talking about stuff, you're talking about the same things as what we're going to be talking about
Oh,
the same
yeah,
week.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm
that's
just like,
funny.
okay, let me listen to this later. I
I
just wait
totally
for it to
get
come
it.
out. I wait for it to come out on YouTube, and I'm just like, let me hear. And it's actually quite interesting because we've
Yeah.
obviously had a big thought experiment about all the various things that's going on, and then I get to hear your guys' thoughts after we've like properly formulated and spoken for 2
I
hours on
love
it,
it.
whatever, which is
Yep.
kind of cool. But I think V's spoken about that before, about having loot containers where it doesn't actually have anything in it per
Yeah.
se, and it rolls that chance when you go
Yep.
inside, which is kind of interesting. It might even make loading faster too, because you wouldn't even need to load everything
In
on the map.
in
But
theory,
most containers aren't looted, I would imagine, right, in the game.
yep.
So it's unnecessary. You don't even need to.
And scavs and any sort of AI don't loot. And there's currently only a maximum of like on the biggest maps 12 to 14 players.
Mm,
So it's like even if every player on a map looted something at the exact same time, that's still magnitudes less information than every client having to know what's in every container on the entire map at all times. And not everybody would loot at the same time. So in theory, you'd be able to skip the loading loot portion of loading into a map.
Hmm.
And you know what I mean? It's like we're all sending thousands of back and forths to the server every
yeah,
second. If we're reloading, moving, positioning, jumping, shooting, you know what I mean? So the little like what's in this Jeep, what's in this PC, like that additional thing shouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't take a crazy amount of time. It feels like it would do it. Like even when we know there's still a little.
Right.
It takes a second to search through everything. So like, there's already like a baked in load
it's
time.
true.
It feels like it would just make sense for every time for it to just roll what it is, and then you know what I mean? Obviously, any loose loot cheaters would be able to see, but it would still be infinitely less effective. You could do that change and then over time move all of the highest tier loot into containers and replace it. All the loose loot could, T-plugs, wires, things that are still needed by people
Hmm.
doing the hideout or,
Yeah.
barters or something like that. But make sure that all your high tier stuff is spawning in a container. Maybe even add a few extra containers. Tons of games have like cardboard boxes that are lootable. You know what I mean? You could sprinkle those throughout some maps and give them a chance for a high tier loot or something. And I feel like over time you could accomplish that goal without having to change that player experience. But like I said, if changing the player experience was a part of it anyway, then who am I to say that that's a good or bad change, right? Like if BSG is like, yeah, we want to combat RMT, but we also want to combat boosting. We are uncomfortable with how many people drop things for other people. And I think that that's really just like one of the unsolvable questions, right? Because like the online games are almost the staple now. We live in an era of time where technology is at a place where we can play with our friends, we can play with people across the world, and that is obviously amazing. But at the same time, there's the feeling. I totally agree with you, Church. I feel like there's a lot of unrealized potential in the RPG side, and I
Hmm.
want more of that. But there's, the feeling of grinding an old RPG that wasn't an online and you're running the same dungeon over and over and over and over and over again. And you get that rare thing and you're like, this is sick. I got this thing. You tell all your friends you got it. It's hard to get that feeling in an online game because if it's online, you want to be able to share the thing. If I get something that I don't need, I want to be able to give it to you. But then it wasn't the whole point of grinding the RPG, the fact that you put in maximum work and got the thing you want. So does it cheapen the experience to be able to give that to other people? But then what is the player experience? Like that's my thing. Like the thing that makes me the most uncomfortable for this is that like not that I'm a stickler for like lore or realism. Oh God, we don't want to have to go down that road. But it's just like less realism and more just like the player experience. Like
Hmm.
I'm just
Yeah.
uncomfortable with the fact that like stuff just Thanos snaps out of existence. Like
Right.
just don't let me drop it.
Yeah.
I'd rather I go drop Doc's case and it goes no than for me to just like throw it and it just just like disappears like that player experience feels weird. Or if I load up my bag full of non-found in raid stuff because maybe I'm going to an in-raid trader one day and I die and you loot me and I have an empty bag, like the fact that that loot just disappears, like So it's like I
Right.
get both sides of the equation. You want the gear to matter. You don't like I don't want to be able like from a game dev side, I don't want you to be able to just give your friend a green key card. I want every player that has a green key card to have worked for that green key card. It's like, oh, I can get behind that. But then on the other side, if you're a player, you're like, well, I'm in an online game and I'm interacting with people, so I want to be able to interact with people. So it's like, oh, I get
Right.
that too. So it's like a complicated question that I don't have the answer to, but I just get uncomfortable of gear just obliterating itself. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, so it's like the experience means something to me, and it might be an unsolvable question to have that. Because every game I played New World briefly, and yeah, they had their own UI and UX weirdness where like you grind a thing and then you get a thing and you're like, oh, my friend's a mage, he might like this, but this is bind on pickup. So because I touched it, I now can't do anything with it. I'll just sell it on the marketplace. And it's like, that's hard too. So I don't know of a game that's nailed that, the feeling of really being rewarded for doing something and getting gear, but also being a social game. Uh, so so once again, like I said, any frustration I have around this change isn't really a like point at like BSG, you suck. This would have been easy to do. I don't know how to do it either, and I haven't seen a game do it well, but I am critical of a few parts of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that does make sense.
absolutely.
I think it's super, super hard. It's
Yeah.
difficult, and we've talked before about certain things where it's interesting because you mentioned about how it just disappears into the ether, and it's about immersion breaking in some ways. And there's things that
Yeah.
are more or less immersion breaking, right? And we've talked previously in church about how certain things that are technically almost identical, like exactly what you're saying, but make a huge difference to the player. Like my favorite example is the semi-auto change when they put in the cap at the beginning, and if you click
Oh,
too fast, it just wouldn't register anymore. And they changed it so that if you do click too fast, it just caps you at the max fire rate. And the difference in feeling, like technically speaking, they're very similar in terms of the way it's coded,
Yes.
but
yep.
from the person using the system, it feels completely different. And the same thing for this, right? If it just stopped you
Yeah.
from dropping it rather than it vapor, like it's the same thing really, but
Yeah.
it's weird how some of these things make a huge impact to the person playing the game as opposed to
Yep.
what it kind of looks like, technically speaking. It's a funny one. Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned that, and I thought like, oh, Daisy sort of immediately sprang to mind. It's a game that I've been thinking
Yeah.
about recently-ish, but it doesn't have any actual like market. This is the thing about Tarkov because you've got
Yes.
the flea market and you've got the rubles tied into everything.
Yes.
I'm not even sure if there's even outside of certain modded servers. I don't know if there's even any money in Daisy. I don't think there is. And when I remember playing, I think
Yeah,
it's
I
just
don't
loot.
think in vanilla,
So
yeah.
Not vanilla either.
so it doesn't even really make sense, and everyone's kind of bound to their server. So RMT's not, because in Tarkov it works because it's global,
Yep.
and if you start on a different server, DayZ, you start again. It's like it's just a completely different thing. It's like the way that, and we talked about cheaters in other games a minute ago, but Tarkov accidentally has become the hardest game to solve for cheaters in
Yeah.
RMT because it
Yeah.
has an inbuilt business model that makes it work, a circular loop where people can
100%.
do all sorts of things, RMT, carries, whatever, and it's it's super profitable. Like people cheating
Yeah.
in other games, often it's just to rage
And
hack or
it's
whatever and like just you know dick on other people. But
yep.
in Tarkov, it's actually a legitimate business, which is sort of the issue. It's very hard. You need to break that loop somehow, and they're trying, but it's not easy.
100%. And the only way to break the loop is to like completely sacrifice the like integrity of the game. Because like the reason the reason the cheaters the reason it's so profitable is because they're selling loot to people that think they need loot when really they need to just learn how to get better at the game. So if you think loot makes you survive, you're going to buy a Risti and Zabralo and you're going to get Flechette to the legs and then you're going to be pissed and you're going to buy it again. And if it's like if you don't ever learn how to just get good at the game, you're just going to keep dying with that good gear that you're buying and it's not going to help you. So like it's a perpetual loop where it's like well, okay, well then you just make the game easier. Well, it's like, well then the game is dead. You know what I mean? If it's like if it wasn't a hard game and if you did buy that loot, it made you unkillable. Well, then the integrity of Tarkov is gone. So it's like there's no way to break that cycle. Geeks that made like a funny joke where he was like he's like another way to stop RMT is if BSG just sold rubles, right? If they just started selling rubles, then what
Mhm.
I don't want to pay somebody to cheat. You know what I mean? It was like there were studies done where like the usage of like the Pirate Bay, like to torrent
Yeah.
stuff, dropped dramatically the years after Netflix came out, even though Netflix costs money because people don't want there's like everybody's got a different value. I don't want to break the law, but I don't want to go buy this $25 DVD. So I'll break the law. But if it's like, then they brought that down, it's like, oh, well, now it's only $9 a month to get this thing. And so I'll do it. So I'll pay the money. You know what I mean? So it was like, we'll just sell rubles and then people won't want to cheat. But it's like, it's the same thing. Well, now you've completely devalued everything and it kind of ruins the whole point of everything. So it is so hard. Now I definitely agree, like Daisy or Rust or something like that comes to mind because, at least from my outside perspective, right? Like Daisy doesn't have a huge RMT problem or a huge cheating problem. And the whole thing is, you're exactly right. There's less loops. There is no global economy. There is no flea market. And that is what has me interested about this change. Because I will, until the day I die, preach, and you will too, GigaBeef, because I've been watching your video as often as I can. Open world. I
Uh,
need this in my life. I need open world Tarkov. And the reason why these changes have me intrigued is because, like, this all becomes less of a big deal if we're spending more time in the raids, in the world, right? Like,
yeah.
if I can be in the game for hours at a time, like I
Mhm.
can with DayZ, maybe like I kill Scav boss and then I go over here and I pay the Scavs to extract this loot. If I come across somebody and I want to trade something with them, at that point, most likely what I'm going to want to trade is something I found in raid. Because if I met this player, you know what I mean? It's not going to be like, hey, let's go here. I'm going to go get to my hideout and then I'm going to come back in the server and meet you here. It'll just be like, oh, I have this, you have this. And it doesn't really matter because it's most likely stuff that we've already found. So I'm interested to see if that kind of curbs a little bit of the negative effects of this. If the game continues down that road and we're trying to spend more time in the world, then more things are found in raid, and found in raid things don't apply to this change. So that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you took it to its kind of logical conclusion, I mean, I know they're probably not going to do it now. I'm not sure exactly how. No one really knows how it's going to function with the in-raid
Yeah.
traders and whether traders are going to be between maps and all this stuff. But for argument's sake, for a second, we just imagine all the traders are in raid. Well, then you don't
Yeah.
need find in raid status anymore because everything's found in
Correct.
raid. So it doesn't
Correct.
matter because there's an element of risk. And the reason why find in raid is there in the first place is because some things have an element of risk involved, which are the things you found in raid, and some things aren't because you bought them straight from the trader. But if everything's in raid, then it doesn't matter anymore
Yeah.
because you have to traverse from your hideout and blah blah blah. But I don't really know exactly how it's going to work. I mean, yeah, I was amazed that you had my video on a command.
Oh
I
my
was very
God.
very flattered. I was very flattered
Got
that you
me
had my video on a
so
command
pumped.
in your stream, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, I went around and like nerded out and like looked through all the little gaps and the things. Like I love doing that kind of stuff. Like it's been funny actually listening to your guys' conversations about it because Veritas is just like so like anti-law. It's
Oh,
like
dude,
it's
he's just
hilarious.
like, I'll believe it when I see it. Like, you know what I mean?
But I'm definitely on like Team Jesse on that because I don't know, even like I just like linking any little bits of things together that
Yeah.
make it for me, it just enriches the world. I always like a bit of a backstory. I mean, I've told this story before on this cast, but like, oh God, when even was it now? It's like December 2020 or something. I made a video for one of the BSG contests, and it was the day in the life thing, and I did the day in life video of, and basically it was like a role playing like I've never made it was the only movie I've ever made. Made this like little
That's
10-minute
funny.
movie of a scientist from Terror Group that escapes the purge when they all get shot and escapes and turns into a scab basically because he just is forced to like live on the land and learn Russian
Oh
and all
my
this stuff.
gosh.
And the thing ends with like a PMC, there's like a PMC kind of operation, and they like blow the hole open in customs wall, and that was the customs expansion. And now, and I said in the thing, I was
Oh,
like, this is what I want BSG to do. Now, I'm not big head enough to think that it was my influence at all, but maybe even just a little bit of what I
yeah.
did, because this was like a long time ago, right? And I was like, if they could just, it would enrich the world so much for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people who care about this stuff, if you can even just in some vague way explain the things that are happening, because it's just
100%.
cool. Me and Church talked about it before, and what kind of gave me this idea was because I mean I've played Fortnite about 3 times, but reading the story of what they did and the way that they progressed the player base through this like global story was actually
Yeah.
crazy, right? And it ended up being like such a huge sensation when like they sucked the whole, I can't remember which season it was, but they sucked the whole world into like a big vortex, and the game they took
Yep.
the game down for 2 days. I was like, everyone is so excited, like it reached my feed, and I don't even play the game.
Yep.
You know, it's like, and that
Yep.
level of kind of global story, it brings the community together. It makes everybody feel that there's something bigger
For
than
sure.
themselves going on. And that's why I love what BSG is doing with the law, whether it makes sense or not, whether it gets changed in later on or whatever. I just like feeling that there's more weight behind the world. It's exciting when people talk about it on Twitter and everyone's speculating and stuff. Like, I love it, man. I think it's great.
I love it
think it's
too.
great. But
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think like these events specifically that they've been doing have been so awesome. Like the fact that we actually have characters like Rizzy and like that are coming up in multiple events, and that the Lightkeeper like Lightkeeper coming into the game is going to mean so much more than when they added Jaeger because of this. Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like we've had traders added, right? They were just like, new trader Jaeger, he sells shotgun ammo now. And it was like, cool, you know what I mean? But like now when freaking like the first time any of us go interact with Lightkeeper, we're going to be like, you're the SOB that stole 1.5 trillion rubles from the economy, and like you're powerful enough to scare the traders away. And it's like, that's cool. Like I love that stuff. I think it's almost like tainted by the fact that like everybody's just like when like, you know what I mean? The fact that everybody looks through it through that lens, I'm like, no, like get that out of here and just like let this be a thing that happens. It's cooler that way. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I mean, as much as I am a BSG backer and just a believer in the things and trust and whatever, it is a shame that they ended the event this way. It is for me, right? It's just, I know that this stuff's coming and it's fine. I just wish that they'd been able to kind of just like, just line it up, like tighten it up, be a bit more tidy about the way that they've done it, and like finish the event and be like, here, like the best way that the event could have ended. And I actually thought this was going to happen. I didn't really say, but because in the back of my mind, I really hoped this would happen, that the Lightkeeper would turn up as the only trader, and there were no others. The others hadn't come back yet, and you had to go and raid, and you had to go and trade with him. He was the only one.
Really cool.
That would have been sick, because everyone would have been trying to go, right? And but then and it's just sort of like, oh, we've just like run out of steam. And
even for just like a day, that would have been so
even just for a day. And I hope that something technical has happened, and that was always the plan, right? To continue along this path and launch it or whatever. But there's been some problem as they've had to kind of fill the time with Rizzy will go on, walk through the woods,
do something
to try and fill it, because like it is a shame, and I'm a little bit disappointed with the way that it's ended, to be honest. I mean, I'm normally the type of player that just like, I just go through, I just take these at face value normally, and I try to separate what I think BSG should do in the community separately to, what am I going to do as a player to adapt to this event. I try to take those two things sort of separately and just enjoy the event for what it is. But I am a little disappointed, I have to say. I am, and I wish they timed it a bit better. I do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it felt like it was leading towards something. You know what I mean? Like it felt like it was leading towards something big, and then it just kind of ended. You know what I mean? And I almost kind of have to believe that too, that it was like something came up, like something stopped this from happening, because it was so pointing towards something, and then it just nothing happened for a few days, and then we got the Raiders the Rogues for a few days, and then now like stuff's 30% off, and I have no idea what to think about that. Like,
It's a bit strange. But on that note, for anybody listening, if the event's still going on, buy all your dollars now if you're going to need them in the future. Buy all your euros now if you need them in the future, and stop selling Bitcoin until the event's over, because the traders buy the stuff back for 30% less as well. But dollars are super cheap. You can set yourself up for the rest of the wipe, and the same with euros if you need them for quests or whatever. Just a random aside you just made me think of.
It's true though. It's true.
Yeah, I'm fuel or anything like that. Did either, actually, just before I forget, because we were talking about RMT and that kind of stuff before, just to round off my thoughts on that, did you see either of you guys see the video that Pestily put up? And he just said, watch this little clip, and it was a bit out of a RuneScape documentary. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, you should watch it. It's quite interesting, and they're basically talking about how they had like free trade, so any player could just go up and trade with any other player, and they ended up so they were having so many, I think, because people pay for like premium and all this stuff, but they had so many issues, firstly with people doing RMT and free trade, and also with stolen credit cards being used in RuneScape, that they nearly got like blocked by the payment provider or whatever. And all of this stuff basically meant that they ended up removing free trade completely, and it like totally changed the game. I mean, I guess the equivalent would be deleting the flea market, would be the sort of equivalent, although that wouldn't really help in this particular case. But it's, you'd stop, it'd be, I don't know, I guess the equivalent is stopping people dropping anything ever, like nothing.
Yeah,
no guns,
no matter
loot,
what,
nothing.
if you pick it up, you can't drop it.
Because they're the old equivalent of the the PvP bit, the wilderness, right? And after they made this change, if you killed someone else, they wouldn't drop anything when they died, and so it
Yeah.
completely changed the game. So it was an interesting little excerpt there that I thought was worth bringing up, because
Yeah.
it's not the first time that game devs have battled with this kind of problem, right? It's and that's actually a very similar economic model. Everyone's in sort of the same world. Anybody can trade with anybody else. There's an economic system. There's items of value, things that are very hard to get access to, a huge player progression curve and grinding up and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just wanted to mention it before I forgot and before we moved on too quickly. But
I had heard of like RuneScape as an example of like devs combating RMT. I didn't really like, I mean, I played RuneScape way back in the day, but like I didn't really know too much about it. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a hard thing. I mean, I was just watching a video today about like New World and what happened there. I loved New World when it first came out, and I kind of ended. And things got so bad with RMT, with like, in that case, it was like dupes and glitches because their code kind of sucked. And they were doing similar stuff where like for multiple days they just halted, like in the entire game, trade between players. Like, and people had stuff on the auction house that they weren't allowing. So so I don't know. It's definitely, they're definitely not the first game company to struggle with it.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the cheater conversation too. You know what I mean? You look at like Warzone, made by one of the best, no, best, made by one of the biggest game developers out there. Definitely not the best. With one of the biggest budgets, with some of the highest concurrent player bases on average, and they can't get their cheater problem under control. Similar thing, a battle royale is always going to encourage cheaters because there's a winner. You know what I mean? So it's like, in other games, like if Tarkov, like, yeah, if you couldn't drop anything ever, it's like some people would cheat because they want to win, but there isn't really like a winner. You don't get to see a victory around. Nobody else knows you won. And that motivation would fade really quickly. So like games like Tarkov have such a huge incentive to cheat because it's like I can sell the stuff and there's like a market, similar to MMOs. And then battle royales will always encourage it as well because it's like I win. I am the winner of the game. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's like I think a few people on Twitter need to go, you know what I mean? Like understand that there's, Tarkov's not the first game to experience cheaters or RMT problems. And yeah, like what I can respect is that they're trying to do something about it.
yeah,
They might not get it right. You know what I mean? Or it might not have an effect, or some people might not like it, but it works. It could be any one of those things. But the fact that they're trying to do something about it, I can respect, because at the end of the day, they are trying to preserve the experience and make it better for everybody. So
Let me ask you
we'll
guys a
see.
question, if you don't mind sticking on this topic a little bit. If not, we can move on. But
Yeah.
I had a discussion with a friend a couple of months ago. Who was getting really frustrated at some of the game mechanics and whatnot. And we were kind of just talking, trying to like define definitions and, set kind of like an equal footing to start a discussion. So outside of cheating, right? Just the action of me selling something in a game to another person, is that wrong? Like, would you, I guess from your own eyes, like obviously the developer of the game, they can set their own EUL, their terms of service, right? But
Yeah.
like, would you consider that cheating necessarily?
for the buyer.
Seller or buyer? Like, in other words, is it a morally unsound thing for me to take my in-game work, because you gotta
Yeah.
put in the time for the thing, whatever it is, if
Yeah.
it's an account you're selling, if it's whatever, you're it's just like working a job, and then you're gonna sell that to someone, they're gonna give you money for it. Is that a morally unsound thing?
Oh, so you like actually are talking about like selling just like separate from cheating to do it. Like if you were gonna
Outside of
sell.
cheating,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Just
Yes,
like
like
if I was
just
just
the
like, I'm
act.
done with Tarkov, but I'm level 64. So if somebody
Mhm.
wants my account.
Or my guns or my gear, whatever.
Yeah. I think
That's really tough.
yeah, I think it's just one of those things where like intrinsically, not necessarily. It's just like
Mhm.
it's like, Square's a rectangle, but not all rectangles are squares. You know what I mean? Like something can
Mm.
be two things. It's like, yeah, you can do that with absolutely perfect moral, you know what I mean? Where it's like some dude's like, yeah, let me give you $50 for this because I know you. It's like, yeah, sure, whatever. But I just feel like in this world, it's like 99% of the rectangles are squares. So is it easier to just get it off the table? That's kind of it's just like it's just a behavior that like it's just a behavior that is almost always going to be associated with something else unsavory. So it's just easier to not, is kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. Yeah, I agree with you in especially practically speaking. It's just like it's so connected with the
Yeah.
cheating problem that like it's so hard to extract it. But if you were going to have a game where it is impossible to cheat for whatever
Yeah. Yeah.
hypothetical
Yeah.
reasons that you might come up with, then I don't know. I think it sort of depends on the game in some ways because
Yeah.
it's tricky because it's like, well, would buying an account on Dota 2 with 6k MMR be cheating? Well, you're just going to get smashed, right? If
Mhm.
you buy an account that's level 60 on Tarkov,
Yeah.
you have extra skills, you have advantages over other players. Like it's a bit, and you didn't work for that. It's tricky, right?
Yeah.
Because like if you're playing a flat game again, like PUBG or something or whatever with like cosmetics, then that's a bit different because that's just of monetary value. So I think it depends on the game. I think it's tough. Like we're talking about Tarkov specifically in games. And say if you bought like a WoW account, or you bought a Tarkov
Yeah.
account. I mean, it's hard, right? Because do you really affect anybody outside of yourself? Not
Yeah.
really. I mean, I guess it depends on whether you're only really cheating yourself for the most part
Right.
because you're
Yeah.
cheating yourself out of the experience. And you don't really hurt any. If the cheating is absolutely off the table, you're not really hurting anybody else, probably because you're going to die and lose all your gear to them
Yeah.
anyway. If you're not very
Exactly.
good,
Yeah.
so on that basis, it's kind of like, well, is it cheating? Not really, but is it sort of against the ethos of the game? Most definitely.
Yeah.
And does it rob you of the player experience personally and make you then probably not play the game and not play the game as an active, enthusiastic, member,
Yeah.
a proper member of the community? Also, yes. So I don't know. I think it's on this sort of fine line. Is it outright cheating though in a game where cheating just doesn't exist? Then like technically speaking, probably no. But I would still very much advise
Yeah.
against it.
Yeah. I
Yeah, I
agree.
think what you said is very, very wise in that you're cheating yourself out of the experience. You know what I mean? It's like you're
For sure.
like in a way you did do the work, but not in the game. You know what I mean? Like I went to my 9 to 5 so
For
I could
sure.
buy, whatever items so I can be a cool guy with all my other friends. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's a weird thing. And as you guys said, I mean, this is like an issue for like the past 20 years. Maybe that's a little too far, but this has like just been an issue. And I don't know. It's almost just like that was sort of his argument. It was just like RMTing is just inevitable and everything they're doing. Like at the time, I think he was just frustrated that
Yeah.
it had to do with like Found and Rage selling on the flea market. I can't remember what it was, but anyways, he was like, everything they're doing is just making my experience worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then again, on the flip side, the RMT, if you died to, first day of white, the guy's wiping red room. You know what I mean? Like that. If you knew about that, you'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
he was cheating out of my game experience. So it's like it's a hard thing to balance there. I don't
100%. I
know.
think that's the thing to remember is it's like you're it's not Battle States and really any game developer here. It's not Battle States' fault that your experience is being affected. It's the cheater's fault. Because either your experience is affected by changes made to the game to combat cheating, or inevitably one day your experience is dampened by somebody cheating
Hmm.
and killing you. So it's like your experience, the potential for your experience being affected comes before Battle State Games does anything by people cheating. And if you got into a raid with a cheater, that affected your experience. Now, does that mean like, you know what I mean? All the jokes of like, once again, there's a billion shades of gray in between that. And then it's Battle State's job to set a line where it's like, okay, well, we're going to affect your game experience this much because like all the memes going around, people are like, if we just, Veritas tweeted, he was like, if we just make bullets not do damage, then I can't be cheated on. You know what I mean? And it's like that's an absurd, but like that truly means that like somewhere between me running into a cheater and my bullets not working, there's a line, and that line's going to be different for everybody.
Right.
But Battlestate Games has to do something, and so they are going to do something, and they're gonna have to say, well, here's the line. We are comfortable affecting your player experience this much, and inevitably, some people won't care, some people will care, and some people won't notice or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's how it is. But that's the cheater's fault. Like, you know what I mean? It's not Battlestate Games' fault. It's not, Amazon's fault or EA's fault. Like, it's the cheater's fault. We can't expect, to convince the world to stop cheating at things either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, I guess we're all along for this ride. Um, as people try and figure it out. Because if they didn't, if BSG didn't care about the player experience, then they wouldn't do anything.
Right.
And you would just get cheated on, and that feels bad too. You know what I mean?
Why aren't BSG doing anything about the cheaters? Why?
Yeah,
Cheaters,
exactly.
Exactly this.
So it's like I think people get it backwards when they see these changes and they think Battlestate Games, they're like, they don't care about the casual, they don't care about the player experience, they don't care about things. It's like, that's like the opposite. Like, they're doing the thing because they're trying to prevent people getting cheated on and people's experiencing being ruined by cheating themselves, cheating on other people, or buying everything and completely skipping the whole point of the game. You know what I mean? It's like, it's funny because it's like, yeah, I remember when I was a kid. I don't remember when Age of Empires 1 came out, but I remember playing Age of Empires 1, and I remember looking at the cheat codes. Wasn't online, I was a kid, so I would get instant build and infinite resources. I would just type 99999 for wood and stone and stuff like that, and I would be like, this is sick, and I'd build my freaking huge thing, and I would go stomp the AI before they even freaking constructed the thing. And because of that, I didn't play a lot of Age of Empires.
What's the point?
I played it for like 15 or 20 hours because it's like I can beat the game in 10 minutes. And how many times do you want to beat the game in 10 minutes before that's boring?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just, yeah, it doesn't really, it never does what you want it to do. You know what I mean? It's like, I guess I don't know. I wouldn't feel good I wouldn't feel like I won if I bought, a Meta Mutant and a Risty and a Slick and then went in and stomped on a level 12 on customs. Like, I wouldn't feel like I won that fight. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So
yeah, there was Tobias put an interesting tweet up where he was responding to somebody else, I think, and he said that legitimate users of whatever system always get inconvenienced when trying to prevent fraudulent behavior or something along those lines.
Yeah.
He was just like, you have people who steal, and so we have locks on our door, which means you have to unlock your door every time you leave your house. Is it annoying? Well, yeah, I mean, in the context of not having to unlock your door, but it's better than having someone, potentially, and it also it's a deterrent, right? I don't think he even went this far with the analogy, but it doesn't stop somebody from coming and stealing your stuff. It's just a deterrent. It makes it harder.
Right.
It means that less people are likely to do it. Right?
That's
the more
barriers
it doesn't need to be like, it doesn't need to 100% prevent it. You just need to put more barriers up to prevent more people from doing it and to make it less likely. It's not a catch-all. It's it's a sort of trying to prevent as many people as possible from doing it whilst not affecting the legitimate user experience. Like, it just we're circling all the way back around to your point about Netflix earlier. It's actually very similar in some ways with Steam. Steam is also almost the same, and it's about service and that kind of thing. People used to torrent games all the time, and we were in an age of like pretty rapacious DRM management on CDs, and the only people that would have a problem is people whose discs were scratched, people whose internet connection was spotty because they were constantly trying to connect with these servers, and the hacked copies had all of the restrictions removed. So all it did was end up hurting the legitimate users. And then Steam came out. It's just like, well, you've got auto updates, you've got all these things coming on Steam sale, and and most people just use Steam now. It's just like it's just way better.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, it reminds me of that exactly. It's just like, you have to draw the line in a careful way, because otherwise, if you hurt legitimate people too much, then it ends up being bad as well. So it's
Yeah.
it's not easy. I did love
And
the
the
cheat codes on Age
unfortunate
of Empires though.
reality. Wait, what?
I did love the cheat codes in Age of Empires though. I still
Oh
remember
yeah,
all the
I
Age of
mean, of
Empires 2
course,
ones.
dude. Yeah, dude. It's yeah.
How do I turn this on with all the cars? You're like going
And
through with all the little
yes,
doors going.
dude. Yes. Oh my god. Wow. You like unlocked a core memory there.
So good.
Um.
Cheesesteak Jimmy's.
Yeah, and it's
I don't
just
know why I
like,
remember
and
that.
it's and I had a conversation with somebody on like cheating. We had a conversation about cheating where it was like, did I cheat in video games when I was 11? And I was like, yeah, like I'm not gonna lie. I cheated in Age of Empires. You know, I went to cheatcc.com or whatever it was.
Mhm.
I had a Game Shark, you know what I mean? And we did all this stuff. And it was like, yeah. And I look back on that and I'm like, yes, of course I cheapened my own experience, but I wasn't hurting anybody else.
Because
You
it's
know what I
long
mean?
multiplayer, right?
Exactly. And then the question was, but would you have when you were in 11 if it was an online game? Like the reason you didn't do it in an online game wasn't because you were this moral bastion of society. It was because online games were impossible when you were 11. And it's like, oh shoot, you're right. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, dang. And so I don't know if I could, I just don't know. So it's like, I'm not in any way justifying cheating at all. Um, at all. But it's just like, I guess I don't know. Everybody's song and dance always changes with how something is affecting them. You know what I mean? Exactly. It's like, you know, people are super annoyed that they now have to put a capital letter, a lowercase letter, a special character in their password for their bank information. But when their money's gone, they're like, come on, bank, where's your security? And it's like, well, your password was password, you idiot. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to be inconvenienced until something bad happens to me. And then you should have prevented this from happening.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you know what I mean? That's where we are. At the end of the day, people just on average don't think critically enough to understand both sides of the coin, to understand that I want my life to be as affected as little as possible, but to understand that when my life is affected, whether it's door locks, passwords, or not being able to drop something, most of the time it's from some larger power trying to prevent something bad from happening to me. And I don't like that until the bad thing happens to me, and then I'm sad you didn't do more. And I get it. It's human nature, you know what I mean? But it's just like, just don't ask me what I like. I don't know, like you know, like don't. It's like I don't know, you know what I mean? Like not you, but like it's like chat. It's like I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
freaking just play the game or play another. Like all I can tell you is like play the game or play another game. I
You're sat
guess,
there just like thinking about your life choices, squinting the screen, trying to click on every sidewalk in the
dude.
BFG like
Yeah.
capture, and you're like, and they just keep
No.
reappearing, and you're like, again, another
Oh
one. I just want
my
to change my
god, bro.
profile.
Their
Oh my god.
captcha is something.
BSG is some of like the most like obnoxious like prevention, and sometimes it just comes up with the thing being like this IP just doesn't work, and you're just like, I just lost the IP lottery today. I need to
Yep.
reset my router and get another one because they
Yep.
banned this one for some reason. Like it's it can be
So
pretty.
weird. Yeah. So I don't know, man. It's hard. I get it. I
Yeah.
get both sides. I don't have a solution. I'm frustrated at parts of it. It's like we'll just see how she goes is the
Yeah.
only answer I can give at this point, you know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, yeah.
think it I think once they get some of the bugs and exploits and workarounds, I've heard some stuff, but I haven't really looked into it. But once they get that
Yeah.
ironed out, I do think it's actually be really effective. As far as RMT, because I'll try to be brief here. I had a friend of a friend who bought RMT, right? And this was back like 2 years ago, man. Like this was some time ago. Like it made me
Yeah.
see, I can't even remember because I want to say boundary raid wasn't a thing. I want to say that was the case because they
Mm.
did. I remember him talking about he traded like a bandage for an
Oh
M4.
yeah. Oh yeah. We used to do
And
that all the time.
yeah, and that was sort of like I'm pretty sure they did most of it, if not all of it, on the market. But he got like a stick case, he got like a Red Rebel, or
Yeah.
I want to say it was basically the story was got busy with work. He came back and he was like, dude, I don't want to do all this grinding again. So he bought RMT. And we are like, no, what are you thinking? Why are you doing
Yeah.
this? So he buys RMT and he's like, oh, it's not cheating, guys. But anyways, dude, what a wild conversation that was. So I think they did it mostly on the flea market. They might have went in raid and dropped
Yeah.
the items like the red rebel, because that's the thing, right? You put it in the container, you put it in the slot, it's like boom, guarantee, like shoot me in the face, I
Yeah.
got the stuff, So it made the transaction really easy. So I think it's gonna like heavily cut that down, because I assume that once they put in Founder Raid, the RMTers were like, and hackers were like, okay, we'll just go on the raid and then drop them the stuff.
Yeah.
And because we have cheats, it's like you're probably not gonna die. You know what I mean? And if you do,
Yeah.
I'll just refund you or whatever. So like I can see it being really effective. The question is, two quick things, how is the player experience going to look like? Because once that new wipe hits, baby, it's like, oh
Yeah.
man,
yeah.
I can't give my buddy that hose he needs. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, we'll have to see how that plays. But what are the cheaters going to do to pivot is kind of like what I'm interested in. And on top
Because
of
they
that,
will.
not only the RMTs, but the actual hack developers, because if the market's no more for people to supply the RMTers, to supply the people who buy the RMT, if that's no more
Yeah.
the market for the cheat developers, if the new market becomes, okay, now you just need an advantage, and like free cheats starts becoming really popular, like just like free wall
Yeah.
hacks, chams, whatever, rendering your skeleton, if that just becomes like popular, that's like the teaser to get them like, ooh yeah, I can feel the power. I'm a real I'm just like
Yeah.
that gamer JesseKazam. I'm really good at the game now. So
Yeah.
I definitely want to see how it plays out. My initial impression, not a big fan, but talking to you, Jesse, and GigaBeef, I've definitely feel a lot. It's not that bad actually. It's all right.
Dude, I mean, we'll see, because I mean, that's a good point. It's like, if you're all for it and you're like, BSG, great job, it's like you can't do yourself the disservice of being like, this is going to be it. We're going to win the war. You know what I mean? Because you're like, what you said is like, how are the developers of the cheats going to pivot? Because they will, right? This is what they do for money, and they will. You know what I mean? Now the hope is that like BSG can cut them off at more and more passes and kind of push them into a smaller and smaller corner, right? Like, let's hope that they can do that, but they're not going to go down without a fight for sure. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and like, I think at the end of the day, like, right, like we said before, we only have half of the equation. I don't know how they cheat. I don't know what kind of cheats they use. I don't know how often it happens. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? I'm very hesitant to believe. I interviewed a cheater and he said there's cheaters in every raid. It's like, well, yeah, he wants you to think that, so you go by cheats because you think it's not that big of a deal. It's like, so I'm very hesitant to believe that, you know what I mean? But it's like, but I just don't know. So I only have half of the equation. So I'm very interested to see how they're gonna pivot there, a little bit. Like, I don't know if you guys saw the update today to the flea market with the tax on items.
Yeah, the changes
Yeah.
they're very big, right?
Yeah, so I saw Axel tweeted, and he tweeted that he had a found in raid red rebel, not red rebel. He had a found in raid red key card, and he was trying to put it up for 50 million, and the tax was 129 million.
Yeah.
So, and Tiggs was doing the same thing with like a red rebel or a Taiga. He tried to put the Taiga up for 10, it cost him 12 or something. And it's like, once again, that leads me to believe once again that they're going down the route of like, no. Independent of RMT and cheating, if you want the rare stuff, you gotta go find the rare stuff. You know what I mean? Like, because that feels like, you know what I mean? And at that point, then there's all these questions of like, well, then what the hell is the flea market for? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, I like, and I don't know. I mean, because I made that video a long time ago about like the whole concept of like the civilian flea market. Let's just remove, which we kind of have like half of now. Once again, I don't believe that I like, came up with the idea and they watched it and they were like, that's a good idea. But maybe it affected it all. But like, my idea was nothing combat related, no ammo, no armor, no helmets, no visors, no guns attachments, no nothing, no melee weapons. And it was just like, it was just for, barter items and other stuff. And like, and this, dude, this is what I was going to say, because the real struggle we're in with this game is just like, what is the value of an item? And in DayZ, we talked about this earlier, the value of an item is directly linked to how much you need it.
Yeah.
If you are super kitted and you've got I don't even know if there's grenade launchers in DayZ, but if you're thick and you're kitted and you are dying of food, you have no food, then beans are worth more than the 7th gun you have in your bag. You
Right.
went to Northwest Airfield, you got this 6 sniper, you don't want to part with it, but you're going to die. I don't have bandages or I don't have beans. That is what's valuable. And in Tarkov, it's just ruble per slot.
Yeah.
It's if there's a barter, well, how much are the things I need for the barter on the Flea? They're this much, then what's the easiest way to get items that I can then sell for this much money to buy the things I need for the barter? It's all just ruble per slot. It's all rubles. It has nothing to do with how much or little I need an item. So I think that's an intrinsic thing if we're talking about separate from RMT and cheating, if we're talking about boosting or if we're talking about selling the highest value stuff, if that's an avenue they're trying to combat too, then that's the question they have to figure out is how do you make a Tarkov where you need something, but you're not just looking at it through rubles per slot. You know what I mean? Like I get the amount of people that come in my chat and say I loot terribly. You know what I mean? It's like, no, ditch the gun, take off the attachments. It's like, I want the gun. I was like, maybe I need the gun later. You know what I mean? I want the trooper armor's only 63.7K per slot. It's like, but I want the armor. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's like, and I was very vindicated when they took away the traders for 5 days. I got a stash full of stuff, bro. I got armor, even crappy class 4 armor. I got armor, bro. I got helmets. I got guns. All you got is attachments and no guns to put it on. You have money and nothing to spend your money on. Ha! Like I felt so good. You know what I mean? It was like, so.
Such a good day to be a hoarder.
Yes. But it was like, how do you get, if that's the way they want to go, how do you get the community to separate that ruble per slot thing? You know what I mean? Like I was talking to Veritas about like, what if, like, let's say there's a universe where like level 1 traders are exactly the same. Level 1 prop where you can get some bare bones AKs and some 7.62 PS air. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, what if like as you leveled up, every higher level only unlocked barters? The only thing you could spend money on was level 1 stuff, and beyond that, it was all barters. And it's like at level 4, 12 cartons of cigarettes and 7 packs of milk, I can get a mutant. It's like, well, now if I want that thing, I've got to go find those things. So I'm not a woods main, but I know there's 87,000 technical crates on woods. I'm going to go to woods. I'm going to find my cigarettes. I'm going to get this, or I'm going to get the ammo. I'm going to get this. Now, immediately you're like, well, you would just buy the cigarettes off the flea market. So once again, I don't know, but it's like, but how do we get there? How do we get to a place where anything means anything other than money? Because all of these changes are always looked through that way, where it's like, oh man, if now I can't sell anything on the flea market, that's so stupid. How else am I going to make money? It's like, well, what if it was better to have a stash full of gear and less money than 50 million rubles and no gear? Like, what if that's the game they're trying to make? Well, if it is the game they're trying to make, they have to retrain the player, because up until this point, it's been money, right? Like that's been the whole point of everything. It's just to make money. And how do they do that? Once again, I don't know. I'm glad that I'm not making the decisions, but it is interesting to think about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that this wipe definitely we're moving more towards that. Like before
Yes.
this, you could just do anything with anything, everything, and it's about the. I'm not sure if even like fungibility is the right word, but like basically you can take it's a fundamental piece of game design decision making from BSG as to whether you can take 100 crappy AKs with 50 durability and turn that into a meta M4 through a transmutation alchemy process called rubles, right? Or whether you cannot do that, right? And that's the thing. Yeah, if you can't just take the money from all the junk and turn it into awesome stuff, then that's different. And you can't do that this wipe because of restrictions to the flea and that kind of thing. And I feel like we're slowly moving that way. And I know Nikita said multiple times before that he wants to nudge the player base towards the end goal that he wants, rather than just going, snap, here you go, flea's deleted, everything's fine in raid. off you
For
go,
sure.
have fun, right? So he's like slowly going to nudge us that direction, which I think is good. The one piece of the puzzle that I personally think is missing, and me and Church have talked about this before, is find in raid barters, which you could then specifically carve out things, which means you need to go find those cigarettes in raid
Yeah.
to get the high tier items. So maybe regular items can just still be normal barters. You can buy the stuff off the Flea, but like maybe for the mutant, or maybe for a Flea, or maybe for whatever, something that's
Yeah.
like in the top echelon, you have to go find those items, or even some kind of, they don't really pay much attention to the loot coloring, how rare it is kind of
Yeah.
system, but they
There's like
have that in the
6
game,
things
right?
that are purple, and that's
Yeah,
it.
there's
Like,
like so like you've got the purple stuff and there's the blue stuff and there's the usual white things. They kind of have that, but they don't. It doesn't really matter in the game particularly.
Yeah.
Some of them are a bit random, but you could use a system like that to say you need to hand me 5 items of this particular tier, like of the top tier, because then you can
Yeah,
find
yeah, yeah.
any of them and then go and get whatever it was, something like that. Because basically what they're doing is, I feel like they're sort of doing roundabout ways to do things that they want using the systems
Yeah.
they put in place, right? Because they're basically saying things like, okay, so red key card, we don't want people to be able to transmute AK-74Us into red key cards with
Into red
rubles.
key card,
That's
yeah.
what that we don't want that. But if you have items of high value like greens, blues, thick items, whatever, you can barter rare items for other people's rare items. That's still okay. And by turning the flea market fee up a lot, you basically delete the ruble section and you force people to do those barters instead. And
Yeah.
I feel like, from a philosophical perspective, that's where they're coming from, saying you can trade two, like a green and a blue for a red, but you can't buy it with rubles. And
Yeah.
that's how I think that gets done, because they're just sort of cutting that money avenue off and just keeping it to barters on the Flea. But I mean, look, it's as you said, right? It's the problem with all
Yeah.
these barters is that all the items in the game are just intrinsically linked in this big web of what you can make out of what. And
Yes.
they pull the hex grid barter out, and the items that were connected to that just fall to
Fell
the
off a
trader
cliff.
price, right?
Yep.
They're not
Yep.
useful for anything anymore. And so, and this is the thing. So if you did more of that finding raid stuff, then yeah, some of those items wouldn't be that useful now. And they'd be more connected to what you could
That's
craft in the
true.
higher data. And if you couldn't, then yeah, they're just going to go back to their base price. But I do think that finding raid items would help to. It's something that I've thought about for a while, and
Yeah.
we've had discussions about it for ages. And there's other people in the community who've spoken to me about it too, about how you could really fix that. I mean, there's lots of ways that they could do it as well. There's
course.
lots of other ways. We were brainstorming the other week about some interesting way of doing, say, like to get the mutant, it never comes as its own thing. Imagine it only comes as parts in boxes. You only get like the mutant gas block,
Yo.
or the mutant like upper, and you slowly have to piece together over like multiple
Dude,
raids because it never comes as one thing.
100%.
And then like even from there, I was like stretching slightly
He's
further and being like,
sick.
so that you don't have such like ridiculous RNG. You're like, dude, I need the barrel. I cannot find the barrel anywhere. I'm gonna have to hit a million crates. This sucks. You could have like, once a week maybe a quest with Skier, say, or whoever, and you could order a part, and it's gonna come in a day. So you complete the quest, and he'll order you a part from Europe or whatever. So you then go, I
That's
just need the barrel,
so
but I can
sick.
pick the part I want, right? So you get so you have to do most of the work, but to stop that final piece of RNG, you can then do the work for him, and a day later he
That's
ships
so
you the
sick.
piece. Then you can put together your mutant, and you're like, dude, this is awesome. The dude that kills you inevitably with the Saiga 12 gauge with Magnum buckshot picks it up and is just like, bro, a mutant,
Dude,
this is insane. Like it'd be great.
That's such a good idea. Oh my God. That's such a good idea, because you could just do that with like dailies. The dailies could
Yeah.
be the daily rewards, right? Because like then they don't have to code quests. It's just they already have it in.
Right.
Oh my God. That'd
That'd
be
be sick.
so sick. That'd be so sick. It'd be interesting if like you can only get what that trader sold. So like if your daily came up for therapist, it's like, I don't have any more ETGs. I could order an ETG, or I could re-roll the quest and hope it pops up at a different trader. So that way it's not like everybody just ordering all the same parts all the time, because there's always going to be a meta that forms. Oh my, dude, that's such a good idea. I'm like processing that, because like that's the universe I want, right? Where it's like, I want the universe where like, and Veritas talked about this a lot in his history of Tarkov videos, where like he shows tons of footage where it's like Operator Drewski, and he was like, yo, these guys had stacked meta AKs, bro. And it was literally just a stock AK with a 60 round mag and a suppressor. Still had iron sights. And he was like, these guys were thick. And that meant so much that he found a 60 round mag and a suppressor. You know what I mean? And now it's like, boring meta mutant. It's like, oh, this guy's level 12. How did he get a meta mutant? Boring. It's like, oh my God. Like there's no like, oh my God, this gun is sick. Like it has everything, bro.
Yeah.
Like, or the interchangeability of stuff. Like a lot of the charging handles work across multiple different gun platforms. So you kill a guy and he's like, oh, I don't really like this M4, but I want this M4 because back at the hideout, I can take the charging handle out and it's the last thing I need for this gun. You know what I mean? Like, and like, I think that's really good. Because
Yeah, it'd be cool. Because like so Sugar was just saying in chat, just
like
reading through chat a little bit,
my
he's saying like,
mind.
I'd want some balancing for people who can't play as much, and that's fine. And like in this world that I'm imagining,
sure.
it would only be the top level of stuff. Like you don't need the mutant to play Tarkov.
Of
You don't
course,
need the mutant to play Tarkov well.
Yeah.
I've probably used the mutant 5 times this wipe, to be honest,
Yeah.
because I've just not been focusing on those guns. But like,
And there's some sort of scale of like the more you play, the more gear you need because the more potential you have to die. So like if you can only have 3 daily quests, right? Like if you play less, then those 3 daily quests actually add more value to you because if you can complete them all, that's 3 items and you're only going to play a few raids where it's like I can order my 3 items, but I'm going to play all night long. So I definitely agree there that there is some balance where it's not like with everything, it's just for the highest tier stuff. And that's not the only way to get the high tier stuff, right? Like we all know that like if you have good positioning and good accuracy and you're only taking fights you can win, you can kill people with a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Like you can get an ADAR and a Bravo and for, you know what I mean? And I know GigaBeef, you've done a ton of budget videos. Like you can be proficient in this game with budget weapons. And so by forcing all of the chads to do all the hard work for the meta stuff, you know what I mean? Every once in a while, you're going to Mosin a chad and he's going to have the meta stuff and you didn't have to work for it. You know what I mean? So,
there's lots of ways to go about it, but
yes. And of course there are always unintended consequences that we don't expect, right? Because like it's impossible for us to think all those things, but off the top of my head, dude, that's such a good idea. And I was wondering, I going back to what we were talking about, the flea market, I had never thought about this before. Tear this apart, like tear this idea apart, both of you, because I can't tell if it's a good idea or a bad idea or not. First of all, found and raid is weird. Before I even get to the idea, found and raid is weird because that is the stupidest thing they could have called it. Because half of the items that are found in raid you don't find in raid, and half of the items you found in raid aren't found in raid. That's big dumb. They should have just called it sellable and non-sellable or something. But now they can't even do that because then after they introduced found in raid, they introduced quests that require found in raid items. So so the found in raid marker doesn't only, it used to only, the only reason it was there, it was a sellable item or a non-sellable item. But now it doesn't just mean that anymore. Now it means this can be a quest item or not a quest item, or a sellable item or not a sellable item. And they've made that even more convoluted. So obviously that needs some work. Even if we keep it in the game, that just needs some work. But like the flea market, everybody, the big thing is like, get rid of the flea market. Obviously not everybody wants that, but like, it's a very extreme, the people who do want that, it's a very extreme view where it's like, just get rid of the flea market, completely get rid of it. I had never really considered before, like, what if it was a barter-only flea market only? Because then in order to get a rare thing, you have to have a rare thing. And maybe that rare thing is a lot of not rare things. Maybe somebody is selling a key card for, 50 GPUs or 150 wires or something, but it still then means every transaction ultimately ends up as a result of playing the game and being in a raid. You know what I mean? Because it's like, he's got a thick weapons case. He's willing to give it up for 50 GPUs or for this or for that or for this. And it's like, I can't then go buy the GPUs to trade him. I need to go find them, or I've been saving, like, I don't know, but that would just, the concept of that, it's like, in order to get something, you have to have something that's not just money. That the UI would be terrible for that. The current UI is
that's
atrocious.
what I was thinking.
The current UI for barters is absolutely atrocious. And that is for sure. I mean, it's like the things, the military corrugated tubes, the hunting matches, all the stuff in the beginning of this wipe that were the tax was way too much. It was awful. It was like the first 77 listings were for marked keys. And it's like, I don't have a marked key. Don't show me any that, like, so I don't know, but I don't know.
Well,
what do you guys think about that? Would that be a bad idea or a good idea?
As a thought experiment, would only the flea market be like, let's assume they had the perfect UI implementation and it was like super, let's say it's just perfect, flawless, right? So you're saying the flea market would be barter only. So would that only apply to the flea market? Like, would traders, would you be able to buy cash currency and sell and get currency? Would that still be a thing?
I think so. I don't know. I'm just almost trying to like reverse engineer the problem that we talked about, where it's like everything, every time, like, because then at least that would be way more of what you're saying, GigaBeef earlier, where it's like snap. It's like, this is just a change. The game is different now. You know what I mean? Just like, I don't know how long you guys have been playing, but it was like, there is pre-flea market and there was post-flea market.
Yeah.
Like those were different games. Like that would be a different game for sure. But like almost trying to reverse engineer the problem where it's like every time they add a step, like every time they add a step to this process that just convolutes it even more, I don't think it accomplishes their goal and it frustrates the players. So that's a hard thing. It's like, does it accomplish the goal and frustrate the players? Well, then maybe it was worth it. Does it not accomplish the goal, but it didn't really frustrate anybody? Then it wasn't that big of a deal. But if it doesn't accomplish the goal and it frustrates the players, that's just an L. Like that's just an L. And it's like, so, okay. So I can't list high tier stuff on the flea market anymore because it's just a bajillion rubles. Well, all you're doing is making it harder to do those things. Like the chads are going to figure it out. Like tomorrow, there's going to be a new meta thing to grind money for, buy the things, barter for the thing, sell the thing, and now buy the taiga. Like it's not getting rid of it, right? Like they're just making it harder. And as long as that's happening, why are we doing this? You know what I mean? So it's like, if we're trying to reverse engineer from the solution where it's like, well, okay, if we don't want money to be this magical resource that transmutes any one thing into another thing, then what are the use cases for money? In this case, maybe just buying from traders, you know what I mean? And this other thing can be different. And like I said, it could be a terrible idea and there's probably a million implications that I don't know, but it's like, and of course, like I said, the atrocious UI around barters would have to be changed. But like, it just feels like a lot of the changes don't accomplish the goal and frustrate the players. And so I don't know how to go about it.
Yeah, it's tricky. My gut is that either people just would end up not using it because it would be too annoying, or that you just wouldn't be able to find the stuff. It's one of those things where, like, in principle, I think it's kind of cool, like the idea of PNCs, like, oh, I've got this and you've got this, but just like I just feel like the practicalities just might be too difficult to make it sensible.
It would basically be a complete reversal of like filter by item would basically, it would be a complete reversal. It would be required search. It would be I want this and I have this to barter. And I would throw that up on the flea market and hope somebody cared. And you would peruse the flea market by saying, I found a green key card, right click required search. What are people willing to give me for it? That would basically be the way that the customer would interact, because it would be so niche to say, I have a green key card, I want 67 of this. And it's like the reality of you finding the one person that's looking for a green key card, boom. It would be the seller perusing the market, not the buyer. The buyer would be like, I want this and I got a whole bunch of this and I'm just going to put this up on the market and hope. But that's it. But I'm going to keep playing the game, but I'm just going to hope. But the seller would be perusing the market saying, that's the one. That's the best deal that's on right now. And I need these things, so I'll take it. Because then, once again, in my hypothetical, there could be tons of other things that are affected here. In my hypothetical, we're a step closer to, well, how important are those beans to you? You know, in DayZ, it's like right now, really important. You know what I mean? It's like, I found a green key card, but I really want to get my Bitcoin farm up and I don't have any CPU fans or PSUs. So I might trade that green key card for a total value of only 250,000 rubles. because right now that's what's important to me. I might do that. I might make that trade. Right now, I never will because I know people are going to pay. Like, you know what I mean? I know I can just throw up the green key card for 25 million, and I know in a few days somebody's going to buy that. So with the current system, you'll never accept a lower value. Because why?
Yeah.
Because money is what we're talking about. But if we're talking about barters, you're like, you know what I mean? Maybe I'll take a few less GPUs so I can get this now, so I can get my hideout upgraded, so I can do this. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you say, it's a complete like rework. So
Complete reversal of
it's
how
so
it would be
hard
used.
to try and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
ripple effect, the spider's web, you like cut through the whole like side of the web and
100%.
all these ripple effects. So I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean it's kind of the same. The issue now, right? It's just like I've had this Merrin key sat forever. It's probably worth nothing anymore. I ended up getting rid of one of them, and but it's just like you look through and you're just, oh, people want the Merrin key plus this.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that. Okay, well, plus this, oh, but I don't have that either. And they want two, and they want a Dorm's Mark key, and I'm like, well, none of these are really of any use. So you have to like try
Exactly.
to find the one that's like just specific to your thing. Like it's the
Yep.
wrong way around a bit. So
Exactly. And that's and that it feels like they're backing themselves into that as opposed to starting there. Because like I
mm,
said, now for a Taiga, nobody's going to have it up for sale. People are only going to have it up for barters. And because it's a um I don't know, buyer's market, seller market, because the buyer is the one perusing the market, it'll always be frustrating. Because like in order to buy a barter from the flea market, all the things I'm going to give to you have to be found in raid.
Mhm.
So, like you said, you've got a Marin key, you click required search, and it's like, oh, but I don't have a Marin key and a founded raid marked key. I don't have a Marin
Right.
key and a this. I don't have a Marin key and a that. So they're backing the community into a worse version of what I just described because it's like, well, now the Taiga tax is crazy. So now it's only going to be barters for Taigas. But if I want a Taiga, I'm never going to have everything that the person is asking for because who has 50 found in raid GPUs? You know what I mean? Who has 6 Marin keys and 3 found in raid? Like, so now what they have is like, once again, I'm not as married to this idea as it sounds like I am. I'm just the thought experiment here
yeah, yeah.
because now we have a worse version of both. We have a super convoluted version of a ruble based flea market because certain things have a tax of 7,000% and certain things have a tax of like 6%. So that's convoluted and not very great for the new player experience because it's like, what the hell? Why? What? And we have a worse version of the barter economy because now red key cards, taigas, Marin keys, dorm keys, hunter matches, all these things are forced into a barter only, but because the UI sucks and because of the way found and raid is structured, that's a worse version too. So it's like, I'm trying to think like at the rate BSG is making changes and the changes they're making, what's the logical conclusion of this? Like, who's going to have, you know what I mean? Like, No Food After Midnight had the ammo charts. Who's going to have the Google Excel spreadsheet on what you should list for rubles, what you should list for barters, what the most optimal barters are? That's the logical conclusion. And that's immersion breaking to me. That doesn't
Mm,
feel good for the player to not know what has monetary value, what has a barter value, what's the meta barter, what's the most value you can get from the barters, as opposed to just saying, turn around and start from the other way.
Right.
What do I need?
Yeah.
I've got this thing. Does anybody want it? I need this. That just kind of feels, I don't know. Like I said, I'm totally not. I'm just like, I'm trying to
Mhm.
push the limits and see what happens. I don't know.
And for me, that's what makes the early wipe gameplay so invigorating, dude. Like, yeah, I could drop this army bandage for whatever loot item, but if I get a bleed, and it's
Yeah,
late wipe and I
yeah,
don't have a lot of meds on me, I got slices of cheese, you know what I mean? That army bandage is gonna
yeah.
come in handy. So it's like it really makes like, yeah, I really want more loot, a few extra rubles, but I also want to make out of this
Yeah.
raid. Yeah. What I suspect is if they were to do a barter only flea market, there like if we took a snapshot of this current where we are in the wipe and sort of like of the economy, I guess I should say. I would suspect that there would be like a fiat currency where basically an item becomes the new ruble essentially. And to me I would
Mm,
suspect maybe like 762 BP or something that's like
yeah,
a lot of people want, you know what I mean? It's like useful for a lot
yeah,
of players. And maybe, and this is kind of the weird part, is like with crafting, what maybe it would evolve to is like everything would be traded into like power cords. So it's like you take the or green gunpowder, but let me stick with the power cords example. So you take the power cords, if you want the red key card, it's 132 power cords. It's like fine, I got it. Here they are.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not a good example. I'm trying to think of a craft that you can craft, produce found in raid items, and then put it back into the hideout to produce more found in raid items. Because what I could see happening is like you get all those power cords. I craft wires. Now I sell the wires to therapists. I got the rubles, or some sort of
Yeah, I see
like
yeah.
circulating craft. But that's why I was thinking of the 762 BP thing.
sure.
Like if you got the blue gunpowder or green gunpowder, then you take that, craft the
Yeah.
bullets. Now you put the bullets up for the other item you want to get.
That's
just
true. Because you
I
can
don't know.
craft the green gunpowder and you can craft the blue gunpowder, and then you use those 2 gunpowders to craft the
Oh,
BP,
that's
and then now you
right.
Yeah. Yeah, dude,
Yeah,
for
I don't
sure.
know.
And of course, and like every layer has more layers. Like a lot of these
Yes.
ideas only work if the loot economy changes, right? Like I don't think anybody's superbly happy with like 90% of the time they see a box of ammo on the ground, it's Keter ammo. It's like, come on, man. Let me find some 5.56 out here every once in a while. You know what I mean? Like, so everything touches everything else. What can I find? What can I find? How often can I find it? And it's hard to theory craft because there's always those stopgaps. There's always like, yeah, but then this. Well, what about the quests? And it's like, you're like, yeah, they really have kind of like weaved themselves into a really complicated system that's hard to change.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who hasn't seen, sorry, Church, for anybody who hasn't seen, like Veritas put a tweet up referring his own post like a year and a half ago or something. If anybody hasn't gone to see the flow chart that he put up, you should genuinely go and see it. It's like the find in raid flow chart. Because you think like, oh yeah, find it in raid, yeah, and then it's on a player, it's not finding raid, da da da. But like when you look at his flow chart, you're like, oh my god, there are so many things like the crafts, there's just like so many reasons as to why, like if you die, then it's not, and then it is if you hit, and that's just I think it was one of the very first things he said about it that always struck with me, which is they've called it finding raid, and it's the most unintuitive system ever because if you kill a player in raid and you take their stuff, it's not finding raid. If you craft an item outside of raid, it is finding raid, and that just for new players, it's just like just why is
if you find an item and you put it in your secure container and you die with it, you still have it, but you didn't find it in raid, even though you did because it was in raid that you put it in your container, but you died with it, so now it's not found in raid anymore.
It's crazy. Church, what
okay, yeah, it's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know.
I think from hearing you guys talk and thinking, and I think kind of stepping back like 1,000-foot view, if you will, I think BSG needs to decide or define what type of works can get, or what's not works, but what type of work can you do that will get you to certain, and how, I guess, and how valuable that work is. So like, for example, in like the very first iteration of Flea Market, everyone's work in the game was defined by the ruble, and you could get anything by the ruble, and it was, that's the most valuable thing. Now we're kind of like shifting away from that a bit. If you want to get a AACP, you better be level 45 and have unlocked it from Ragman or killed it off a raider or found it in raid. You can't ruble. That work is not, doesn't qualify. So I think they need to like figure out, okay, because this is like how it kind of ties into too as well, and they got to balance it, of course. But like for example, scavving, like man, you could just like spam scav over and over once you're level 15, and it's just like, boom, man, you could get you just have. I know gun modders are just like freak out when they first get this game. Is like, what, I can do all this stuff to my guns? Heck yeah! So, anyways, I think they gotta attack it from a very like top level approach and sort of define it that way.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. It's hard.
Wow. On a completely different note, unless there's any closing
no, I mean, no.
You guys have. It's always a tricky one. This is a completely different. It's totally separate. It's like taking a total U-turn off to something else.
Let's do it.
Have either of you guys seen the legendary work? Like, so we have some seriously talented people in the space in Tarkov. It's insane. Have you guys? I'm going to mention them both at once because you reminded me before when we were talking about Lightkeeper. Have either of you seen? I'm sure you have. John B's song, The Lightkeeper.
Oh my god,
so good.
And
John is nuts.
also Junker's video, the new one
Out
that
of
he did, the
control.
wipe. God,
Yeah,
it's
dude.
honestly insane.
How many hours, dude? Thousands of hours
I really don't
animating
know.
and like, yeah. Oh, it's epic. It is
It's
absolutely epic.
outrageous.
Yeah.
I'm just astounded that we've just got such. It's just like the level of like talent and creativity from some of the
Yep.
people is nuts. We actually had John B on here once, and like his energy
Really?
was just like so high. And it's really funny because he's like UK drum and bass producer. Like he's a bit
Yep.
older than our
Mhm.
generation, and it's like one of my friends from like back home like knew of him separately through the drum and bass scene. It was just
That's
like, dude,
funny.
you've got John B on your podcast. Like that's nuts.
That's
I was
so
like, I
great,
know, and he streams Tarkov. Like it's such a weird like crossover,
dude.
and these. I'm like, yeah, listen to this song. He's made this sick drum and bass track about the Lightkeeper. He's just like, what are you
Dude,
doing? This is mental. Like,
that's so great. Yeah,
That's
he is
awesome.
insane. I love that stuff. Yeah, the content creation side of things is so sick, and I want more of it. You know what I mean? I want like raid replays, and I want like offline with friends. I want to be able to free cam around. Like I know that that's a very niche thing that they shouldn't be working on over putting
Right.
the game out. But like I dream about that. You know, the ability to make
thing is, right? It's
content
just
like that.
like I don't know how much influence do the videos that the Rust guys make have over the players coming into the game, right? These
Enormous.
videos get literal millions of views,
It's
Yeah.
and it's
crazy.
very rare to get Tarkov videos to that same
Yeah.
scale, right? You just don't, the storytelling just isn't the same. I mean, Church have talked loads about like the structure of the game is just different, and each raid is its own separate thing, and blah 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 blah. Right? You've got an ongoing story in
Yeah.
DayZ and in Rust, and there's revenge and all sorts, right? So there's
Yeah.
reasons for that, but also you can just make this content so much more easily in other games. You know,
For sure.
people fiddle around with SP Tarkov and stuff, and no one really wants to talk about it, and
Yeah.
it's all very, very weird. But I mean, I'm pretty sure because you see some of the stuff that Junker's done in his, and I'm sure he's used that for certain pieces of the assets
Yeah.
where there's no way you can get those shots otherwise.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like when you see a video like that, and it's just I really just don't even know. I mean, the dude's been doing it for such a long time as well.
Yeah.
And each time it
100%.
gets better and better. And like, there's some of the clips. There's like the Doom bit with the double barrel, where he, like
Oh
the
my
guy's going
god.
for the pocket watch, and he's like punching him in
Dude,
the face and stuff. Oh, it's just like,
unreal.
it's
It's
just like,
so frenetic and energetic, and there's just so much to it, and it's so good.
it's so good. I wish there
It's
was a
so
bit more
good.
of that. Yeah, it's kind of like it's sort of like a little bit of the precursor to that, I guess, is kind of the Blender thumbnails thing, which is also like
Yep.
super sick. Like people doing the super high quality renders for the thumbnails. I can't remember who started that exactly. I think was it like the Trey gang, like those guys?
Yeah,
Trey,
like
Tiggs, and
Penguin
I think
3D, I
so.
There
think
was
is
a
his
Yeah,
name.
there was a
exactly.
few guys, a few Rust thumbnail artists
Mm.
that got into that early and did a few Tarkov thumbnails,
Yeah.
and it opened the floodgates for sure, which I'm happy about because I think it pushes the YouTube medium of Tarkov forward. We've
Yeah.
seen some of the most insane. I've commissioned several, and it's like they're like works of art. I'm like, oh my
Oh, there's
god!
which video was it of yours? And I
I did
honestly, the
the
thumbnail on it is
most recently
insane.
the leg meta one. I did the leg meta, and it was I literally sent him a screenshot from the movie Old Boy, and I was like, make this, but on factory with me shooting people in the legs, and he was like, bet, and it looks so sick. Oh my god, yeah.
It's so
So
good, yeah.
yeah, it's cool. So I love that. I love the content creators. I know like Fair TX was like a huge.
Mhm.
He was like one of the first to try and push that forward and do more proper storytelling in
Yeah.
Tarkov. You know what I mean, and not just highlight videos. You know what I
Right.
mean. And so it's I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how that goes. Speaking of that, like I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the arena because I think it ties into like everything. I made a video recently how I think it's the most important thing to happen to the game ever. Um, I think it has insane implications for the game, and so I'd love to hear what you guys thought because there's been a little bit of news about it, and he was talking about it recently on one of the podcasts, and he said that he wanted us to have our hands on it this year. I mean,
Mm.
Streets
Mhm.
has been next patch since 2017, so you know, Keck W. But I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on Arena?
Jake, you want to take it first?
No, go ahead.
I mean, my thoughts on it. I think it's going to be really, really good for the game. I genuinely think it's going to be really good because I just feel that from hearing everything Nikita has said over the years, that the core game of Tarkov is going to continue to go the way that it has been going for the last couple of years, and that it's going to get more survival based, less competitive, less PvP. Because again, we've had conversations previously about inertia and about how it lowers the skill gap at the top end and this kind of thing. But it's the way that they want the game to be, and they want the game to be more tactical and slower paced. They don't want it to be jiggle peeking, rushing, like COD style gameplay, like high octane, and it takes away something from the guys who play in that way when they implement these features in that sort of sense. And so I think that Arena is going to give those players something dedicated that is more like what they want. I hope, anyway. I mean, we'll see exactly how it ends up working out, but I hope it will give them that they want. A Tarkov, or a game that feels like Tarkov. It is Tarkov, but it has the competitive elements they're looking for as well, with high performance servers and all those other things that these people would really like to see. And it'll be interesting as well, because I don't know how it's going to be formulated, but I was talking actually, it was either this stream or the last stream. I was talking about how new players getting into Tarkov, it's super rough, because you just don't get to practice your gunplay for like the first 50 hours, because you walk into customs and you get shot in the head, and you walk into woods and then you get shot in the head, and then you go into factory and then you get shot in the head, and you're just like, dude, can I just have a gunfight with somebody? Like, can I just and it's like, it doesn't even matter what you take. You take the AKM, you take the SKS, you just take the M9. Like, it doesn't matter. You just get shot in the head no matter what you do, because there's spawns and there's terrain and there's ballistics and there's all, and maybe you see the guy before you die, right? But it's like, it takes you so long before you get to actually fight back. Whereas in normal games, and COD is the first one obviously that comes to mind. You just play and you just spawn in and go, and you get enough experience to at least compete with other people. And you might not be the best, or you might be average or whatever, but at least you can play and you can compete. And so it doesn't put as many people off. So I think it actually might be a great thing for lowering the barrier to entry for newer players to get in, and like, the main game is just like really roughing me up. Let's just go and play some factory arena, where maybe you go in with, I don't know how it's going to be done, because they said you can bring your kit in from real EFT as well. So maybe they'll separate it out. There might just be, I mean, it'd be cool if there's just random servers where everybody just gets the same gear, and they might be then play for stakes kind of thing. So they might might just be like free play ones where it's just you get anything and everyone's on the same playing field. Play for stakes where there's maybe different criteria of what you can and can't bring in. It'd be kind of cool if you almost had like you imagine if you had like a boxing type of like scenario. So you got like lightweight, heavyweight, whatever. So you can only spend a certain number of rubles or something along those lines, or maybe you can only have a certain amount of weight. I don't know. So something like that. So there'd be different classes or tiers.
I want a server where your kit is random. Everybody gets the same kit, but nobody knows what they're getting. Because then that pushes people into like who's really good. Who's good with a mutant and who's really good. Who's got good positioning, or who's just can, hold that. Because it's like, what if we all have freaking Tazes? Willers is going to win every time. 100% of the time, Willers is going to win with no matter what. You know what I mean? So it's like, I agree. I didn't mean to interrupt, but there's
no, that's fine. That's fine. So so I think the combination of that, and hopefully, I mean, they've said forever that it's coming, but like the duo co-op offline, the combination of those two things, I think will be some of the best additions for new players personally, just because it allows people to practice the guns. Because I remember when I first started playing was post Flea, so Flea was already in, but it was pre-hideout, and I think just like at the beginning, I didn't really even realize that offline mode was a thing. So I was just like, well, how do I even practice with the guns? And it's just, and you're playing against scavs as well. It's just different. It's not the same. And scavs, I think scavs were relatively easy when I first started playing, because they've gone through, they were easy sometimes, and super hard. And, like they just keep like flipping between. I think we're definitely in a mode of hard scavs, and we have been for a while, which is I like it, but that's just me personally. But I think Arena's going to be good. It really depends on how they do it, but I can only see it bringing benefits for the player base in general, and it giving people an outlet. And sometimes it would be nice to just, or maybe finishing up a stream, you've got half an hour to go, whatever. You're like, right, let's just go play some Arena for half an hour. It's just easy way to just unwind at the end, and that kind of thing. And then you can, as you said, right, you can then have those. Everyone's got the same loadout. You can have proper competitive ladders and even tournaments in there and that kind of thing. I think it's gonna be great. I think it's gonna be really good.
Exactly. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like what you just did was exactly what I did, where it's like when you started, you were like kind of indifferent about it. And by the end of you yourself describing how many benefits it could bring, you were a little bit more excited about it than when you started talking. And that's exactly because That's why I'm so excited about it, because I will play it not that much. Like, I'll play it. It'll be super fun. But like, I want Tarkov. I want survival. I want to trade, my left arm for some beans. I want to get into those moments where it's like, oh my God, this is insane. The new adventures. But the more I think about Arena, the more I see it affecting everything. Because like, literally, like, think about, there's like 3 buckets you could put almost every single Escape from Tarkov player in. You could put them in new player. And if you're new, you have no idea what you want out of the game. You don't know if you want arena. You don't know if you want open world. You just need to know what the hell a Salua is and how to pronounce it. You know what I mean? It's like, I gotta go to customs and kill 5 scavs. Like, when you're new, you have no, like, you're just learning. You're just soaking up this game. And then by and large, of course, not everybody, but by and large, then you have the people that want immersion and realism and longer raids and harder stuff, secure, limit the secure containers, all this stuff. I want stuff harder to get. I want it slower combat, by and large. You've got that bucket of people, and then you've got, like, I want to glue my forehead to the W key, and I just want to kill everybody. You know what I mean? And none of those players are wrong for wanting to do that in one of the most unique video game experiences we've had in decades, as far as shooters goes, and that is Escape from Tarkov. And everybody wants to do that. And everybody wins if the arena is done right. The new players win, absolutely, like you were saying, because, like, it's a place, because they've said before, I got something in my eye. They've said before that they wanted there always to be, like, you can always play. There's always a kit. You know what I mean? Like, and once again, I don't know how they're going to do it with certain servers where they have said that the games are going to be linked. So maybe you can pay a certain currency and bring your mutant, but if you die, you lose it and you can't use it back in Tarkov. Who knows? But they've said that they always want you to be able to play. So if you're new, you get to go and you get to fight players and you get to PvP and you get to learn the game, because you're exactly right. You could spend 10 hours before you actually get into a firefight with somebody. And then you start learning one of the most complex weapon manipulation systems in video game history. It's like you could be 10 hours in before you realize that the gun you were using is a scav gun and it malfunctioned. Well, now what do you do? What's the recoil patterns of these guns? What are the calibers? Wait, what do you mean the SKS has 14 different ammo types that all fit in it? What is that ammo type? Like, the fact that you're like 10 hours in and you're just now learning those things because it's the first time you ever got into a firefight, being able to just hop in and do something. And then you've got the top end of people that, exactly, like, they get to level 70 in 6.5 hours after a wipe, and then they're frustrated because they're bored. And I get it. And it's like, well, now all these people have a place to go and grind out and be competitive and, put people on a level playing field and not get dead raids or not just go around bullying Timmies. They have that place to go. That benefits everybody else. You know what I mean? It feels like then the Tarkov game, I feel like there will be so much less resistance to these nudges more towards the slower game when the people that don't want that have another place to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so it feels like it could be just absolutely huge. And I don't know about you, but it feels like they've had almost this like identity crisis where they're trying to play the midfield. Like, they're like, we'll add this, but we won't add it too strongly, or we want this, or like the recoil, but we don't change recoil too much, but it's still pretty laser beamy. And then you get all this stuff in the middle that feels weird, right? Like recoil. Like, this patch feels worse for recoil than ever because it's meaningless. The numbers are meaningless. A 9mm Vector has 22 vertical recoil, and it is infinitely easier to hold a 5.56 Scar or a Mutant on target. And why? The Mutant has 62 recoil. The Vector has 22. What does that number mean? I don't know, man. I used to know. I don't know anymore. You know what I mean? Like, so
I mean, we could have a whole conversation on that. I've done a lot of deep diving into that, but yeah,
it feels like everything kind of lands in between what the chads and the casuals, which I hate those terms, but once again, by and large, and if we just separate them, you know what I mean? It just feels like that's the easier way to be like, this is this and this is this. And what's crazy is that they've always wanted to do this. That's what helps me too. Like, this isn't This isn't a big dev shift. This isn't a response to the way people are playing. Like, I found forum posts as early as like 2017 and wiki pages and all sorts of stuff from people referencing the arena, and it originally was actually supposed to be like lore supported, that there was like an abandoned shopping mall that was turned into a gladiator arena by the people that stayed behind, and that's what happens. Like, that's what.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it makes sense. It's lore supported. It's something they've always wanted to do, and it just so happens that as the game has progressed, the need for it, in my opinion, has skyrocketed. As drops happened, and now when it wipes, we've got 200,000 people playing Tarkov. It's like, this feels like such a win for everybody that plays Tarkov.
Yeah,
Even
I
if you
100%
don't
agree.
ever want to play the arena, it's still a win for you, because your raids are
Exactly.
most likely going to play out more like you want it, and it's not going to be like 1.5 pixels of a right side peek through a voodoo. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be somebody that wants to fight.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. It's
those people who want to do that can go and do that, right? And I feel like, from the way that I see it, it's almost because listening to a lot of the guys. And by the way, like, thank you so much for doing that podcast with the chat, because
Yeah,
that was
dude.
like
Oh,
honestly
yeah.
insane. That was so good for the community, I think, because just like bridging that gap, it was awesome.
Yeah.
But like, hearing what they were talking about, like 12.11 and some of the previous patches, because I think that, a lot of people enjoyed 12.11 quite a lot. It was sort
Yep.
of it was actually quite a good. The game was in a good place in general. Recall felt good, and the balancing felt
Yep.
okay. And what you ended up with is effectively the system where players like me, I mean, I'm only going to speak for myself, but I'm probably the most casual player of all the content creators up until now, anyway. So we'll see. But in some ways, it's kind of a good thing. But
Yeah.
so people like me will basically just stay on the regular maps and never go to labs, because I'm just going to get destroyed. But I mean, I've heard you talk about this before, though, as well, because the guys on there are just absolutely insane. You don't even need
Out
to
of
run into a
control.
cheater, and I will get killed 5 raids in a row, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't even really matter. So you had like the normal player base, they're just playing the game, they're playing it on the regular maps, and you've got the guys who are just completely cracked and they want PvP and they're playing against each other on labs. And for me, just the way that they're trying to do this, and the way that they want it to end up with, is you basically take that player base from labs, you put those guys into arena, because that's what they really want. They
It
shouldn't really
is.
be on labs, because labs is supposed to be the end game, like final secret thing that you have to go through all these to get to. It shouldn't just be people just going next with the
Yep.
slick and HK and with the PK06 back before everything was
Oh my
changed.
God. Yeah.
You need to move. So those people needed to move somewhere else to arena, because now they're locked off from labs, but now they're kind of frustrated because like they're having to play the normal game, because now they can't even get labs cards from viewers as well and stuff, and then people can't just
Yeah.
grind labs all day, and so their place has sort of been removed a bit. I feel that the update has swung towards the more casual side of the player base in 12.12 in
Yeah.
particular, and I can see why those guys are a bit frustrated, because they have had their home sort of removed
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I do feel for them. I really do. And it's I think it's going to be great for them to be able to go and do that and do the PvP and
For sure.
get the sick plays and be playing against people of the same caliber as them. Because as you were saying, right, it's like it's not good for either they're just in enjoyment of the game, or for the content that they're trying to produce, running around various maps, killing people who are level 6, 15, whatever, right? It's just
100%.
easy for them. They want to be playing this other guys who are level 70 and absolutely cracked out their mind, because when they win big, and they feel like they've really achieved, right? When you go up to the guy's dog tag and he's level 13, you're just like, well, where's the fun in that, right?
Yep.
And that's what Arena is going to bring for them, which I think is going to be fantastic. While the main game continues the path that it's going down now towards more of a game that I enjoy.
And
Um,
all of the middle of the road things that frustrate people can be made better, because like looting, you know what I mean? Like, I get frustrated when somebody, like, when I'm looting and people are like, oh my God, take this, take that, min max this, oh, go back for this, go back for that, and it's like, it's so hard, it's overwhelming. It's like, they just don't even have to loot, like, you know what I mean? They're just not
Right.
even, it's just killing people. It's like, how much time, like, these guys, I think there was a Wipe Willers was like level 68, and he hadn't touched his hideout. He hadn't even done his generator. You know what I mean? Like, because why? Like, and maybe it wasn't Willers, there was somebody. And so it's like, it's this concept of like, all of the other stuff that's in Tarkov is just like unnecessary if that's how you want to play the game. It's so annoying to have to go to the traders and buy key cards and buy this and like a lot of the people that are frustrated with the ammo restrictions, right? Like you don't see level 13s frustrated that they can't buy more than 30 M61 because they can't afford 7 M61 because it's 17 USD a round. You know what I mean? They're like, oh my God, that's expensive. It's like all of these things that are like added to the game to prevent these guys from being able to get whatever they want whenever they want, because all they want to do is have anything they want and then go against other people that have the same stuff. It's like, I think a lot of people think that these guys want to stomp Timmys and they don't. That's like super lame to them. They're like, that's super boring. It's like, yeah, I want a slick and an alt and then an HK, but I want to fight somebody with a slick and an alt and then an HK. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't even necessarily want to have this distinct advantage over their enemy. They just want to be able to have the best of the best and their enemy to have the best of the best and made the best man win. And so it's like all of this other stuff can be made better and more fun to interact with when these people don't have to interact with it and put it down because it's like they don't want that anyway. So it just feels like there's a real opportunity here to push the game forward with the arena, to push every single person who interacts with this game to make their experience better with arena. And so the more I thought about it, I'm like really, really interested to see what they have planned for it.
Yeah, me too. It's interesting you say that because, like, again, like the talk that you did with the guys, like I can't imagine playing the game without using the hideout. Like it's just like a whole
Yeah.
new thing, right? When you see Pestily, like, you know, in jest, but like tweeted at a load of people being like, "You guys haven't donated to the like keep or whatever," and like Landmark's just like, "Yeah, I don't have the scav case." Hyper's like, "Yeah, I don't have the scav case." It's just like, what? Like, really?
What?
These guys
Yeah,
play the
and
game
that's
without upgrading this stuff? Like,
yeah. I
it's
want
just funny.
more.
It's
I
like,
want a bigger hideout. I want more things to grind
more to
for. You know what I
upgrade,
mean?
right?
Like
More, yeah.
100%. We were talking the other day about how I wish there was a larger stash space that EOD people could grind for too. Make it 100 million rubles. I don't care. Like I want stuff to grind for and upgrade and do. Now, this has been the best wipe for that ever. There is more to do at the end than ever. I'm level 65 right now. It's the highest level I've ever been in Tarkov. I've only been level 60 one other time, and I got to level 60 before the game wiped. Like, and I'm 65 now, and who knows when the wipe is. And it's because I can't get enough of stuff to do. I've got dailies, I've got weeklies. There are all sorts of end game tasks. Like I grinded a task to get the Untar armband. There's the kill 20 PMCs on woods without wearing armor, and you get the train hard armband, and then you get Kappa, and you get that armband, and you get the Kappa container. And there's so many end game quests that give tons of experience and cool rewards, but like nothing that like nobody's really mad they don't have the Untar armband. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like if you don't have 80 hours a week to play Tarkov, it's like you're not missing out on much. You know what I mean? It's blue and yours is yellow. Like it doesn't matter, you know, but it gave me something to do and I've loved it. So there's more of that stuff than ever, but I want more separated from the quests. I want level 7 Bitcoin farm. You know what I mean? I want 8 more modules in the hideout. I want a bigger stash I can grind for, like because that's, I don't know, it's there's purpose in it. You know what I mean? And it's not just like I've always wanted there to be more to it than just go and kill somebody and leave. I want there to be more to it than the ruble count. You know what I mean? And so like the fact that there's stuff to grind for, quests, hideout, I love that stuff. But yeah, a lot of these guys are like, I mean, yeah, I got the Bitcoin farm, but I don't have the scav case. And it's like, how? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah. Like you could upgrade it whenever, right? It would take you 2 seconds.
Yeah,
So
you have
got
700 million rubles, like,
and then you haven't upgraded something in the hideout.
Yeah.
It's just like it's complete. And this is the thing. This is why it's good to hear what people say like that, because it's like that's like so outside of like the way that I play games and like my gaming experience. It's just like to not do that. I just can't even really comprehend it. But that's why it's good. That's why it's good to hear that kind of perspective, right? Because it's just like totally different. It's just a totally different way of playing the game. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. When I was just going to ask you, when do you think the wipe is going to be?
Dude, I really don't know anymore. They have definitely gone off the rails with this. As far as like they've gone off the rails as far as like what a predictable course of action could be. Because for many wipes now, it has been like for I think 2.5 years, maybe just 2 years. They've done a December wipe and then a summer wipe. And the summer wipe is anywhere between like mid-June to like August 1. And the December wipes are always like somewhere between like December 12th and like they did that Christmas Eve wipe. Oh my God, that was insane. So it's like 2 years of that. And every time they've gone into a wipe, it's been some level of Raiders are everywhere.
Right.
Everything's 99% off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes the Christmas Eve wipe, we got 24 hours notice. He was on a podcast. He's like, we're wiping tomorrow. Raiders are everywhere. And we were all freaking out. And then I don't know if you guys have been playing this long, but the patch 0.12. So when we went from 11.7 to 0.12, they added reserve and Unity 2019 or 2018. I don't remember. They added Unity, they had a reserve. That pre-wipe went for I think 6 weeks because they kept running into technical difficulties. So Raiders were everywhere and stuff was 99% off for like 3 weeks. Like all the events were happening and it was the most boring, nonsensical thing of all time. Everybody was like, please stop this. But it's been relatively similar. And so it, this event started and it was like the Lightkeeper stuff and they're taking away the traders and everyone's like, well, then it's going to be a wipe and they're going to do this. But then people were like, well, no, they always wipe in the summer. It's been 6 months. And it's like, but then it was like, they're taking money out of the economy. Normally they put money into the economy when it wipes by virtue of making everything 99% off. So basically there's more money in the economy. And it was just like, I was just kind of sitting back and everyone's like, wipe, no wipe, wipe. And I was like, I don't know, man, freaking, they're going to do whatever they want to do. But they've sufficiently done enough weird stuff that I just like truly have no idea. I don't even have a guesstimation anymore. It's like, I think it's exactly as likely that they wipe tomorrow as they wipe in August 1st. I don't even know anymore. I don't know if it's technical difficulties. I don't know if they want to wipe with the Lighthouse expansion. I don't know if they want to put the Lighthouse expansion in without a wipe so that we can test it more. I am so at a loss, which I kind of like. I think being a content creator taints that a little bit because any like wonder I have is crushed out of me by being asked when the wipe is 677,000 times a day. but I kind of like that it's new and it's different and I don't know what to predict and that feels cool. But yeah, I really don't know, man. I think if I had to put my flag down, I'm still erring on like they're not going to wipe in the next few weeks. But who knows?
But who knows? Yeah, because I thought that we were going to get Lighthouse expansion bosses in Raid Trader all together first, and then a wipe later. But now that it's sort of dragging on, it's getting to the point where I mean, yeah, if we got it in a week, then maybe we have a month and a half to test it, and then the wipe happens with whatever else that they add, then maybe. But as time drags on, it's seeming less and less likely. I mean, I was talking to Dave about it and saying like, well, they could still do it in July or something that's still sufficiently far away, maybe early July or so mid-July, and that would feel okay. But then they've got to fit this other update in first, or maybe they bundle it in. Now I'm not really sure anymore, and it's got a bit confusing. So I don't know. I still think we could wipe in this summer. I still think it's definitely possible.
I think at this point, what I would say is most likely is we wipe in the summer around the similar 6-month mark, and we wipe with the Lighthouse expansion. That's not what I want at all.
You don't think
I hate wiping with new maps because I don't want to go to customs and find the stupid pocket watch. I want to play the new map. You know what I mean? Like I hate it so much. I get it, I guess, but like I just want to play the new stuff. I want to go fight the new bosses. I want to go see what the new trader has to offer. And I don't want to be worried about if I die again, this is my last kit. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. So like, I hope not. I hope we get the expansion without a wipe. The only thing that confuses me is that they keep doing events like this 30% off. You immediately had people like, it's officially pre-wipe. And I was like, okay. You know what I mean? It's like I almost tweeted this yesterday. I almost tweeted, I am 100% Tarkov. I'm 100% positive Tarkov is going to wipe there. Now that I've said that, whenever it wipes, I can say I was right. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, sure, it's pre-wipe. Every day after the wipe, it's technically pre-wipe because we're prepared. It's just like, I don't know. Like, I hate, anyways. So it's like, but it's weird. Like 30% off. What is that for? What are they trying to do with that? How long is this going to last? The fact that you sell stuff for 30% less, like doesn't that completely negate everything? It's like, yeah, we're trying to put more money in the economy by making it. It's like, yeah, but you're giving me less when I use the cool stuff and kill people and sell the stuff to you. I'm so confused as to what the purpose of this was. And I really thought that they were like, some technical thing came up. They're not going to add this lighthouse expansion until the summer. But it's like, but they keep doing events. And I'm like, well, are we just going to have 3 to 5 day events every week until they wipe in the summer, or is something coming soon? I have no idea anymore. It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's again, it's funny that you say about, being a creator as well, like adds another element to it, because it's like they did the 5 days when no one was in, and so now like loads of people just haven't come back to the game. So you're just like, everyone's like, well, I'll just wait for the Lighthouse expansion to come, and they're like, oh no, and now, and you can actually see this because no one really, it's hard to know exactly who's in and who's not, who's playing and who's not. But I think what's happened is that you've got your player base of people, and it's skewed towards, you've got this kind of like usual distribution curve. You see anybody who puts out the polls at the end of the wipe, and they say, hey, who's at what level, and you've got like some people who are still low because they've started super late, or they're just getting into it and don't know when the wipes are or whatever, and then you've got this like middle section, and then it's sort of the big long tail off with the people who are really high level at the end. And what it seems to me is that effectively that's like people towards the bottom end have really been cut off, and a lot of people have just gone, well, screw this, if there's going to be no traders for 5 days, I'm just going to leave it. And there is a strong, I don't know, I think there's a strong argument to say that people who were kind of playing Tarkov, with their friends, and they're just, they were on, and these are the more casual people, if they then basically say, well, I'm not going to play for 5 days, and then, well, they're going to do something else, and they find something else to play for 5 days, and then the 5 days in Tarkov is up, and then they're like, well, I'm kind of playing this now, so I'm going to carry on playing this. And I think there's definitely a syndrome of that has happened, because you can see this on the Flea, because all of the inputs which rely on people going in as scavs, as PMCs, and looting and have all dried up, right? Power cords are now 30k each, like Kaduras are now selling for however much, right? Because you can still buy the 4 bags from Ragman for 8k, but Kaduras are now like 30k, 35k, whatever, because people just are not crafting them. But the guys at the top end who are using them in the barters are still around, because we hate ourselves and we just can't leave, right? We literally can't. How ironic, right? The higher level you get, the more that you can't escape from Tarkov.
Oh my God, that's true.
But that's my theory anyway. So, and I think that's how you can see the impact of what's happened to the player base. And as a creator, you're just like, oh, this sucks, because people just aren't really watching the videos anymore, and it kind of hurts the viewer numbers on stream and things. And it's just like, it's tricky. So you just do what you can. But I don't know. I think that's probably, well, that's the best theory I've come up with anyway, because I was like, why are all the prices going crazy? And I'm just like,
it makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Are you guys excited for a wipe, or do you not want a wipe to happen? Like whether it's happening in a week. Okay, interesting. GigaBeef, are you excited for a wipe or no?
I'm less bothered about a wipe, but that's because I sit well, we're actually gonna have to see what happens this time, because like I usually sit right up in the usual like bucket of normal people who play regularly, but not like a full-time person, whatever. Because like I've very recently like transitioned into full-time like a couple of weeks ago.
I saw it, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you. So so we're gonna have to see this wipe. So like this wipe for me is still I'm doing this on the side with my full-time job and the baby and like all this stuff, and we've like moved house and all this kind of crazy stuff to trying to sort out, right? So I'm level 44, and so I kind of sit for like right there with a lot of the rest of the player base in terms of progression. So for me, I've still got stuff to do. I'm still finishing Grenadier. I've still got Shooter Born in Heaven to do, because I hate sniping. Like there's loads of things. There's stuff that takes a long time. I just typically have not done that. Like I really I spoke to Church about this before, but like this wipe like was very crushed for time in general, and I min-maxed the progression to get to the traders. So I was like, what is the least amount, and it's a completely different equation. It's like, what is the least amount of real life time that I can spend to get the most progression that I can in the shortest space of time? And that actually puts a weird lens on the game, because you do weird stuff, like you go into raid, you lie in a bush for 40 minutes, you go off and you do the other things you need to do, and you come back and you run and get the item. And I'm not ashamed at all of that kind of behavior, because I was so crushed for time this wipe. It was actually ridiculous. Like I was it was like, it's a whole nother story, but I was like traveling for work like 2 days a week, making 2 videos after drops and stuff. Like it was completely mental, right? I was like, I basically just didn't speak to anybody for like 6 months. It was insane. So so it was all that, but we'll see what happens in this one. So I've still got stuff to do, and I think again a lot of people get burnt out, normally with the way it goes, and they play a lot and stuff. But because I don't play quite as much or haven't historically, it doesn't bother me too much. It's fine.
Yeah.
Because I don't stream that much either because I spend more time on YouTube. Like it's different. So I'm
Yeah.
not that desperate, but I don't know. In 2 months, I'll feel like I will want one. I think.
Yeah. Shoot me in the face. I do not want to wipe. I'm so
Really?
over it. I'm so over it. I
What?
cannot do those quests again. Dude, delete my whole stash and my money, but let me be level 60 and not have to do these quests again. Just delete all my stuff. I will start from, give me a Makarov and I will rebuild. But dude, I get it. To me, I have a suspicion that, and this is really just largely from my experience, but I have a suspicion that the magic of the wipe is wearing off because of how many a lot of the people have been through. Like, because like, yeah, for sure, early wipe is just so much fun. The fights are so much better. It's like, it's great, but that does not last very long.
No, it
and
doesn't.
and the cost of that 2-week period is 12 weeks of me banging my head against the wall of some really just poorly designed quests. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I just can't. This was the first wipe ever. This one, 12-12, with where I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do this again. Like, I really just don't. And I it's always like a curve, right? Like, if you're brand new to Tarkov, you almost always hate the concept of a wipe because you're like, what the heck? You're taking away
Right.
everything that I just did. But then obviously you learn that it's an opportunity to get better, you know, and to do things better. And then there are a lot of people that like love the wipes because it resets everything. But it just like, I don't know, man. To me, these days, like, I understand. Like, you'll never catch me like whining about it. It's like if they wipe tomorrow, it's like, dude, let's do it. Let's hit it. Let's get the pocket watch. Let's get the thing. Like, but it's like, but it's a weird thing where it's like, okay, I hate the like, you know, not I hate, but like we don't, there's like the min maxers, the no lifers, the chads. It's like, but the game forces me into that behavior because it's like, I'm not gonna enjoy Grenadier for the 12th time. I didn't enjoy it the first time. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna enjoy any of these Jaeger quests. I'm not gonna enjoy lie in
They
a
all
bush,
suck.
eat some mayonnaise, and be dehydrated for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? I'm not like, so I'm gonna min max them and I'm gonna get to the end as fast as humanly possible. And then everybody else that isn't there is gonna point to me and be like, you can't say whatever because you just got through all the quests super quick. And it's like, yeah, but it's like, how many times do you want to do these quests? You know what I mean? Like, you came in and you asked me for tips on how to get through the quests faster. It's like, it's just, this is the logical conclusion. I just have 2,000 more hours or 4,000 more hours in the game than you do. If you like, you'd be doing it just like it's. So I just, it's some of the magic has worn off for me for sure. I totally get why people want it, and I totally respect that opinion because it is boring. Like, it is boring that I get to use whatever I want, whenever I want, no matter what, for sure. You know what I mean? Like, I feel that this wipe definitely pushed us into a better spot there where it's like, you know, like you can't get slicks whenever you want, right? Like, the barter is sold out always. And that's the only way to get it, right? Like, you got to go in raid and find a slick. So I think that's cool. You know what I mean? It's definitely helped. And it's definitely rewarded my play style. Like, right now, I think I have like 14 slicks and 8 hex grids because I just save them, right? Because like, I play better in a trooper armor than I do in a Zabralo. It's just like, it's just the way she goes. You know what I mean? So I collect them and I don't sell them, and I buy a TV rig and kill 6 chads and take all their slicks. You know what I mean? It's like, so, but I just like can't be bothered to do all of that again. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
to me, and this is once again probably my experience more than the community's experience. I don't want to speak for anybody, but I feel now finally this separation of like, yes, we do need to reset the economy maybe or some things, but like, I don't know. It just sounds, especially when like, and then the salt to the wound is whatever the new content is. Like if they wiped
Mhm.
next week and said, here's the Lighthouse expansion, the in-raid trader, which is has the potential to be one of the most fundamentally game-changing things. How are we interacting with this trader? What are they buying? Are they only buying with found and raid stuff? Like, I want to know all this stuff. But you remember that pocket watch that you've done 100 times? You like, go do it again. If you want to get level 3 therapist, or it's just like, it just sounds so brutal to me right now. I don't know. I'm probably just salty.
Do you feel like there's some correlation between your grievance with the quest? Because it sounds like it's mostly the quest, right?
Yeah.
And progressing through those quests because there's sort of like a force that's like pressuring you to get there fast, to be, competitive with like other content creators or like your stream or whatever. Like is there some type of like force there, you think?
Oh, for
Or
sure. For sure. Of course. There's the content creator side is, yeah, of course. You want to be the first to have the video out. You want to be the
yeah,
first
yeah.
to do this. But I don't think that weighs. I don't think that weighs as much. I think being first only gets you so far. I think just
Mhm.
being the best, you know what I mean? And you can see that in a lot of different areas. Um, a great example is like, do you guys watch Z-Chum at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the best. That man was not the first person to make a Rust YouTube video,
No.
but his most recent video he just posted a month ago has 4 million
Yeah,
views.
that
I don't even play
blew
Rust, and I've
up.
seen
I don't
both of
either,
his
and I
Rust
couldn't
videos.
take my eyes off of that
Yeah,
video,
that was
right?
great.
I couldn't take my eyes. It was incredible. His Tarkov stuff is some of the best out there as well. But like, so most of the frustration isn't from the content creation side. It is really more of just like, if I don't get this done as fast as possible, I have to endure it longer. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
my least favorite quests are the shotgun quests. Not because they're
Mhm.
bad quests. Oh, well, I guess it's up to everyone to decide, because I am absolute cheeks with shotguns. I can't hit the broadside of a barn with a shotgun. And so all wipe, I'm dreading the shotgun quests. You know what I mean? And every day that goes by, there's another person who's getting level 40 and getting better gear and making it harder for me to kill them with a shotgun. So I want to get those shotgun quests done as soon as possible. And they're late quests. They're late skier quests. You know what I mean? Set up in Silent Caliber. So it's just like, and once again, that's probably just me. You know what I mean? It's not everybody, but that stuff looms over me. Like Grenadier.
Sure.
I hate that quest because I'm bad with nades. I've
Yeah.
killed myself more than other PMCs with nades. That's why I just can't. I'm bad with nades. You know what I mean? I normally get to a point where like a normal part of the wipe for me is I will just lose 6 million rubles on factory throwing nades at people.
Yeah, I
Because
mean, it's just tough, right? It's just like
yeah,
they're not designed to really kill, and especially now, like as a solo, I've gone into Grenadier with like 3
yeah,
kills with grenades. Like solo play, you pull the pin out, you
yeah.
get insta pushed and die.
Oh,
So
yeah,
like, what are
you
you supposed
do.
to
Yeah.
do?
Nowadays, yeah. And so it's like, now there's a very understandable argument to be made. Well, it's like, yeah, but you don't have to do it that fast, right? Because it's like, it's just get to Grenadier and let it come.
Mhm.
But like the point of having a goal is wanting to accomplish the goal, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to get max level traders.
You're
I
right.
want to get Kappa. I want to get these things. So I want
Mhm.
to accomplish the goal. Give me Grenadier, make it the third proper quest, and lock no quests behind it. Then I'll get it done as I
I
go.
see. Yeah,
But
yeah,
the
yeah.
fact that I don't get it until I'm level 40 and Test Drive and Insomnia are locked behind it, I want it
Mhm.
done now. But if nothing was locked behind it, I need 9 million experience to get to Kappa. Yeah, I'll get 12 grenade kills before I get 9
Right.
million XP, but it's not Kappa. It's I need to get to Insomnia and I need to get to Test Drive and I need to get this. And so that's what brings this pressure to me. They allowed Shooterborn in Heaven earlier. They when they first added Shooterborn in Heaven, it was such a late quest and that was such a grind. It was 120 meter shots, not 100-meter shots. You had to do it on interchange, and everybody hated that. Shooterborn in Heaven is one of my favorite quests in the game. I got all 3 Shoreline, Shooterborn, and Heavens done by like level 20
Mhm.
on accident because I
Yeah.
like playing with long range stuff and I love Shoreline. And it felt good to get some of Shooterborn in Heaven done naturally, not pushing it. By the time I got to the point where I was like, chat, we need to finish Shooterborn in Heaven, I was like, I need 2 kills on reserve and 1 on customs. Cool. Well, let's go snipe. You know what I mean? And it wasn't that big of a deal. And there's nothing locked behind Shooterborn in Heaven. So it was like, there's definitely an aspect of like, Jess, you just don't have to grind it. But at the same time, I don't ever want to get mad at somebody for wanting to accomplish a goal. You know what I mean? It's like, the goal is I want to level up. I want to complete the quests. It's like, I don't ever want to be like, well, you're just doing it too fast. It's like, well, who cares? Right. Like, why does that matter? You know what I mean? I want to complete the goal. If they're constructed in a way that requires less cheesing to accomplish, then it makes it better for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like how many, legitimately, like how many less impact grenades would you have found on factory if you get Grenadier at level 7 and nothing's locked behind it? So many less. But there was there was such a definitive shift when all of the people that play all day got to Grenadier, and they all got to Grenadier within a week of each other. They all had impact nades, and they were all going factory. And all the people that were still doing stirrup, getting 5 pistol kills, were like,
still
well,
got
go
the
factory.
pistols.
And it was just boom, boom, boom. It was nonstop. And then it left. And now you can go to factory, and you can play factory all night and not get impact naded. You're going to get flechette double barreled every other raid, but you won't get impact naded because those, you know what I mean? So it's like that experience affected not just the people who were trying to grind the quest. So yeah, I don't know.
Except the 2 poor guys who got impacted by me today.
Yeah,
I felt so bad for him. So there's actually it was like the the duality of factory impact nades. The first guy was it was from gate 0, ran out, turned around with his P90, shot me in the right arm once, and I impact naded the ground right next to him, killed him with full Tagilla set on. The second guy was crouched by a door, level 8, turned around as I threw the nade. He didn't even get to shoot, and it just went boom, and just instantly killed him. But he turned around and just looked at me just like, like rabbit in the headlights, and I was like, I'm so sorry.
It's definitely satisfying. It's definitely satisfying. We were running around for my last few, and we were voiping with people, and we pushed this guy into gate 3 or into forklift. And I was like, there's 2 of us and 1 of you. I was like, you're dying either way. I was like, come out here and let me impact nade you so I can get my quest done. And at first he was like, no, dude. He was like, screw you guys. But it was like, he knew, like he knew. It was like, you're dying. There's 2 of us. And so he came out and he was like, all right, do it. So I impact naded him. I scooped up all his stuff. We immediately extracted, and I took his dog tag and I friended him. And I said, get in the factory lobby. And we brought all of it. We replaced all of his gear with Chad gear, and I dropped it for him, and we played the raid, and then I got him to extract. And he was like, yo! And I was like, hell yeah. Like, it was so sick. We haven't talked about Voip, but Voip is the best thing to ever happen to Escape from Tarkov, in my opinion.
I really don't use it enough. I don't use it enough. I really don't. Dude, I should use it more. But
it is the best. It is in that like me and Veritas have talked a lot about like how do you give the player the ability to make content, and then you're less off on the hook for making content. When was the last time a content update came to DayZ? You know what I mean? Like, but there's still a thriving people that play that because they get to make the content. And Voip was a huge step in that direction. Yet yesterday, me and Geeks held up a guy and made him sing a Whitney Houston song to us, or else we were going to kill him. And he didn't know who Whitney Houston was. So we were like, well, you have 60 seconds to YouTube somebody. He YouTubed it and he sang us a song. And then we spent the whole rest of the raid kidding him up, unlocking all the rooms for him, giving him gear. And we left last night. I found a Bitcoin in a safe. And then me and Veritas ran into a duo. And I said, what would happen if I said that you guys have to fight and the winner gets a Bitcoin? And one dude immediately shot his friend in the head. Absolutely no hesitation whatsoever. So I dropped him the Bitcoin. We ditched his buddy's stuff, and then we extracted with him. Like, Voip is the best.
Oh,
Voip
man.
is the good. Best.
You can't do that anymore. I just realized. Oh, you can't drop him stuff.
I found the Bitcoin in raid.
Oh, did you? Okay.
So that's how I found it in the safe. So I dropped him the Bitcoin. Now, did I have 2 docs cases full of Bitcoin in my stash specifically for a video idea I have written on my wall?
Oh.
Yes. Now I have to delete or sell all that Bitcoin because I can't do that anymore. But but there's a lot of fun to be had with Voip for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, just swinging right back to what you were saying about the wipe again. Like I feel a lot of the time that for me, whether it wipes or not, I'm normally quite like impartial. I don't really
Yeah.
mind whether it does or doesn't. But for me, I'm normally on the kind of team wipe just because for me, like the game either ends up looking towards the end game, like even there's quests and stuff. Like I'm not really, especially now, I've not been focused on cap or anything. So when I get
Yeah.
to max traders, at least most of the time I'm spending the time working on myself and like my skills and like getting better. And it's
Yeah.
a slow, gradual progression grind.
Yeah.
But when the wipe happens, there's things to do, and I'm a min maxy player, and I really enjoy being under that kind of I don't know, those constraints and being like, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
I only have this, so I can only have to do this, and I've got this attachment.
Request later. Yeah.
Yeah, and the pre-flea and just like piecing it all together, and I find that much more interesting. And
Yeah.
I take the quests as a necessary evil in that process because I don't really enjoy the quests either,
Yeah.
but I'm willing to tolerate them for that experience. That's
Yeah.
the way that I see. Because like now I'm just in kind of going through the quest mode, but I'm doing whatever. Because and people sometimes like people either ask me, they just say like, how do you have so much money, or why are
Yeah.
you using that gear when you've got so much money? Like it's usually one or the other. But like,
Dude.
and I've tried to explain to people multiple times as well. Like there is a content creator angle on the stuff that I do. Like generally, I tend to make budget kit videos, and part of the joy in Tarkov for me is like trying to make the most efficient gun that I can for the like. It's like a Lego,
sure.
It's just like
For
how cheap can I get something that still competes, right? Like that is it's like a challenge in and of itself. So like today I was just like running around with the OPSKS and like you put
100%.
you put the Cobra on it, but you can't get any of the red dots on. But if you use the LaRue, then you can get the rings on it. Then you can put the TAC 30 on it, and you can put the laser on the side. And I'm just like, bam, that's it. That's what I live for in Tarkov. I love that stuff, like the little intricacies and things. Just like it just gets me in the brain in like a special way. And
I
that
totally get
stuff
that.
starts to go away when there's the just drags on. I'm just improving me and myself and slowly getting better, or staying precisely average the same in my own personal skills, which is fine. But like I just enjoy the challenge more, and the quests are a necessary evil to get there, I think, most of the time.
And I totally get that, and I totally agree. I think for me it's the repetitiveness of the quests of doing the exact same ones so many times, and what I see is the shortening of this glorified early wipe experience, where we had such an explosion of players in point 12 because of the first drops event, and every drops event has brought a ton. But I mean, we went from like, when did you guys start playing? What patch?
It was after the reserve patch. So I think
Okay,
it
so
was
after
like
point 12.
I started playing just before reserve.
Okay, so the end of 11.7 or whatever that was.
Probably even have it written down somewhere. Oh, maybe I don't have it with the actual date. So it was May. So I started just before. So 11.7, I actually have a list here. 11.7 started on the 9th of April. I started on the 1st of May.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I started a month after 11.7.
Okay. I mean, there was a time where like there were like 3,000 concurrent players globally playing this game. Like it was slim pickings. Like, you know what I mean? It was like you go 3 raids without seeing anybody. It was crazy. You know what I mean? And now, in such a short amount of time, we had such an influx of players. I mean, and now, like, even like right now, people say Tarkov's dead, and I'm like, ha! Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's probably like 20,000 people playing the game right now. You know what I mean? It's crazy, or more. And so all those players, like on average, when you ask somebody when did you start playing, they say something like you said, just like around reserve or a little bit after or whatever.
Yep. Drops,
all
baby.
of those players are good now. And for the past 4 wipes, they were all just okay learning. So this early wipe was long, but they're all freaking good now, and they're all min-maxing the quests. And of course, there's still new players, but it's like now this beautiful early wipe is shrinking slowly, and it's like, and it just gets, and then I start asking, is all this worth it? Was all the questing and all the rebuilding, like, was it worth it for these 2 weeks of fun? You know what I mean? And there's definitely an element, like you're saying, GigaBeef, all the way through questing. There's an element of like, I like the mental gymnastics of I need this, but how much do I need this? Am I going to find this again? Because I also really need this, or I haven't gotten to use a mutant yet, or I haven't gotten to use this new gun yet. I totally can appreciate that, and I get that, and I just like, and I want that, and I just want a world where it's like that forever. You know what I mean? Like, don't wipe. You know what I mean? It's like instead of a wipe, make it a barter-only flea. Instead of a wipe, like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, like those
Do
things,
something
like,
interesting.
yeah, remove my ability to get gear, like, and see what happens. Now, of course, everyone's like, yeah, but you have all that gear, dude. Delete my stash, soft wipe it, like, you know what I mean? Give everybody, you know, do a barter-only flea, but give everybody 10 million movables and max level traders. And how does everybody uniquely build up their stash with the money? Because the money doesn't really mean anything. All you can get from with your money is like some meds and some basic armor. If anything else you want, you're gonna have to go find or barter for or whatever. It's like that to me, it's like cool. Or on the flip side, like with Voip, like one of the reasons why it's like I want to engage with Voip is super fun early wipe because everybody's doing the same thing. But then there comes a point where it's like we're all doing the same thing. Like, give me the lighthouse expansion right now because I want to like sit at the bridge and like talk to people and like hold them up and do stuff. But I'm not going to be able to do that if I'm doing my quests. You know what I mean? It's like what I want is like give me changes that are going to extend the early wipe forever. You know what I mean? Where weapons
I
or
get
gear is
you.
harder to find, and slash or give me more tools to create my own content like Voip because that's what's keeping me alive right now. I'm laughing harder than I've ever laughed. I'm having experiences. Literally, this has been a great week for Voip. I'm not even making all these stories up. Thursday, what's today? Friday. Yesterday, I was fighting and Geeks died. I was playing with Geeks and he heard two teams voiping. It was like, yo, we're gonna sneak up on these guys because they were voiping at each other. And Geeks pushed up and the dude reacted and flicked and killed Geeks. And he was like, oh, there's like at least three. I heard at least three voices. So I push over and I turn and I kill one of them. And I killed, it was a 2-man and a solo, and I killed one of the 2-man. So I'm in a room where my two options are like run right back out at them on Shoreline Resort or jump off the balcony, right? So I have another extra and I'm kind of feeling them out. And then I hear them talking to each other. He's in this room here on the left. He's in this room here on the left. Like, okay. I'm going to throw a flash in. He throws the flash in. I get my eyes away, but the guy goes, he's flashed. The other guy runs in. I kill that guy. And I'm like, I'm still flashed. And it was like the coolest thing ever. You know what I mean? And it was like, and I didn't need to be early wipe to make that happen. It was, we had the tools and we made the content. And so it's like where I'm at is like, yes, if we wipe, I'll understand and I'll do the quests and I'll have fun and I'll create content and I'll try my best. But it's like, give the players more tools and if you want the game to feel like early wipe, then make it feel like early wipe forever. And if you don't want the game to feel like early wipe, then stop forcing us to go through it for 2 weeks before it resets. You know what I mean? And of course, easier said than done. I know it's not as simple as just like make these changes, BSG, haha. Like, I get that. But like that's where I'm at, where it's just like I'm just like questioning why. It's like, let me engage with this game or change the game. But a new map is not going to change the game.
I
3 new
agree with you
bosses.
that sucks, the new
Yeah,
map thing, because that's what happened to me both for Reserve and for Lighthouse. When both of those maps came out, like I ignored Reserve for ages and learned it later. Lighthouse I ignored for ages and have basically learned it the last 3 weeks because it's just like just all the issues with it in the FPS and all this other stuff. But like I would argue though that this wipe has been a much more extended early wipe. At least for me, it's definitely how it's felt.
In some ways it has, absolutely. Like there's the skill of the average player is still increasing because of how many people are getting better at the game. But there were a lot of shifts. That were really positive to extend that. The like kind of half pseudo civilian Flea where like stuff is restricted. That was such a good change. I personally am a fan of the grenade change, switching to a 2-step process because just like standing at the end of dorms, you know, making myself a sandwich while grenades are just like raining in on me. It's just like eye roll. So like there really has been a lot of stuff, but like I don't know. And once again, I don't have a solution, and I don't. It's just my opinion on like the frustrations with wiping. I get it. I really do. And I would say even as somebody that hates them, they're good for the community. You know what I mean? And you can't deny that a lot of people, you just check Twitter every time they do an event. Everyone's like, wipe. Like people want it. And I understand. But I guess I've just been through enough because I came in 0.9.
Yeah.
I've just been through enough that I'm like, when are we gonna stop needing these? Like, when is the game
Yeah.
just gonna feel like you want the game to feel like? And then, but of course, there's like the development side where it's like, hey, we need everybody to do this thing. But sometimes I just question. I'm like, did everybody need to play Lighthouse as level 1, or could we have just played Lighthouse as level 40? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, to confirm what you're saying, Jesse, in my own experience in the 2+ years or whatever I've been playing, my fall off point has been getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Like for this wipe, it
Yeah.
was 45, level 45. I've never really been like a go for Kappa guy. Like I've done a few quests and collected
Yeah.
items, but I've never really like went for it. And I think what, at least for me, I've sort of like been conditioned for the wipe in that what happens? The wipe happens, you gotta start back over. The quests really suck, but not completing the quests, there's like FOMO, there's like it's a very intense experience, right?
It is. Yeah.
And that's the part I really like is the intensity of it. Whereas when you get to the later parts of the wipe, the game rewards aren't really there, so, like, the feedback loop isn't there, like, it's really intense, and if I do it, I might get rewarded, I get the next trader level that gives me all this cool stuff, it's not really there at the late fight. You could
For
still
sure.
have fun in the intensity part with, like, fighting, I just wiped resort of all the Chads and
Yeah.
got all
Yeah.
the
For
loot,
sure.
like,
For
that's gonna
sure.
be there too, you know what I mean? But for me, I really like that part of the wipe, and exactly what you're saying, like, if that's always been something that was like, what's wrong with the game? Why is the game not fun anymore?
Yeah.
It's like, how can they
Yeah.
take that wipe magic that's gonna trickle away no matter what, but
Exactly.
really like expand it out to where it's like the community isn't going crazy for a wipe because they want that experience again, you know?
Yeah. What exactly? What's the 9, 10, 11 wipes in? You're like, what's gonna change here? Like,
Mhm.
why can't I feel this way at level 50?
Yeah.
That I want to feel that. I want to feel that
Right.
intensity at level 50.
Yeah.
I want to feel that intensity at level 50. And to me, it just seems like the radical ideas of like, well, how do you make a corrugated hose important to a level 50? You give him something that he can only get with a corrugated hose. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just keep resetting his account and being like, haha, you need the corrugated hose again. You know what I mean? It's like that's only gonna work so many times. Like,
Yeah.
so that's just where I'm at. It's like, give me a reason for the intensity. Me and Veritas were talking like once again, you could these are just theory crafting, like of course. But
Sure.
like imagine barter-only flea market, and me and Veritas were talking about how like forget the barter-only flea market. How insane the game would be if all red dots, optics, and LPVOs were like 10 times harder to get. You
Oh
couldn't
my
buy a
god,
single
dude.
one from the traders. You had to find them all in raid, and they were rare. Imagine even me, a level 60 with an M4 or a mutant with iron sights, dude. And you're a
Yeah.
level 12 and you've got a Mosin and a PU. Like,
Mhm.
unless we meet face to face, you're probably gonna win that, dude. If you're 100 meters away and I've got iron sights, you know what I mean? Like that, like if they deleted all the optics from the game, it would feel like early wipe tomorrow.
Yeah.
We would need a wipe because all the fights would be nuts because all the recoil of this gun is all over the place. And even if you had a good gun, even if you had good ammo, if it's like infinitely harder to hit your shots, you know what I mean? Timmy with the SKS and the PSO might beat you. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
like I'm in that way where it's like, how can we how can we make a level 50 feel the intensity? How can we make the level 50 want to go search for loot? How can we make the level 50? Because if we can, then it works probably for the level 7 and the level 20 and the level 50 and the level 70. But right now, it's just like when you hit 42 and you get max traders, what do you need?
Right.
Really, when you get level 15, you know what I mean? What do you need? You know what I mean? So it's like, so that's kind of where I'm at. And of course, I know that that's an easier said than done thing. And I know
Sure,
that
sure.
my personal experience of just 4,500 hours in this game is tempering is the lens that I look through. So like I never claim to speak for everybody, but at the end of the day, I feel like anybody that can really think critically on it can can see that, right? That like the conclusion of this game is not just like delete everybody's stuff every 6 months. It's how do we make it feel fun all the time?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
the most recent patches have added a lot to the game, but haven't done a whole lot to change that. Except 12.12 has been 12.12 was the biggest patch to address some of those things in years. You know what I mean? With the restrictions to the flea market and loot and stuff like that. And so I kind of have a sneaking suspicion that like their goal right now is like vertical slice. They're like any mechanic that we want in the game, shove it in as fast as possible, whether it's in
Yeah,
a
I can
tier
see that.
0 state or a tier 5 state, shove it in because then when we're done, we can balance.
Mhm.
And it's hard because I get that, right? People are like, balance everything. It's like, well, that's hard to do because if you balance everything, we're still beta testers, right? So when they added the grenade launcher, for instance, the GL had all sorts of crazy bugs where the damage was splashing through walls and stuff like that. If they had balanced the grenade launcher, they would have made it very, 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 very hard to get on day one. And that would have meant it would have been much longer before we had seen and addressed those bugs. So they made it relatively easy to get, and everybody was running around labs with them. And it was like, okay, this needs to be tweaked. This needs to be this. And then now it's hard to get. So it's like, if we balance all the guns and ammo right now, then when they add a new caliber, they're going to need to make it available enough for everybody to test. And then that's going to be all everyone talks about. And then everyone's going to say balance, going to have to rebalance it. So like, I can kind of understand them trying to just like shove it all in the game, and then they can balance like within a pretty strict parameters of like, this is what 1.0 is going to look like. So let's just fix it. You know what I mean? So I guess I kind of understand that to an extent, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting that you guys have been talking about removing scopes and optics and that kind of thing, because I think like, I mean, secretly, I am kind of a delete the flea, delete the traders kind of
Yeah, of
mentality, but that would be terrible for the game. So like, it just
course.
isn't.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing. So that's why I've said a couple of times that I actually would be, and again, I always get accused of like splitting the player base and stuff, which is why it's not the right solution. But in a perfect world,
Yeah.
if it didn't do any of that stuff, I would still be a massive advocate for having like a globally unlocked hardcore where people
Yeah.
once enough people escape from Tarkov in the real game or whatever, say I don't know, from 5,000 people have to do it, and then it unlocks hardcore for those people who get cap or escape from Tarkov or whatever, get
Yeah.
some milestone, and then they can switch over to their second account, which is a hardcore only account, and it gives people time to grind through on a much longer time scale against other people who are playing hardcore, because that's the biggest
Yeah.
thing, because I like to play hardcore. I kind of like the idea of it. I don't really like the idea of playing against other people playing standard.
Yeah. I
And
get that.
I don't know, I just wish that there was a way to make that make sense, because I think that
Yeah.
there's a grouping of players that would like to play with no flea and no traders and have these things be super rare.
Yeah.
Have to pick up everything in raid, and it take a lot longer. Can you imagine how long the hideout? I mean, people do it, right? Get max hideout Pestily
Yeah.
and crazy people, but it's just doing that and getting to those milestones takes the best people in the game at progression forever.
Forever.
Takes
Yeah.
them forever, right? And once you lose your good stuff, it's gone. There's no way to get it back. You have to find it
Yeah.
in raid, right? And you could rebalance it. Maybe you could keep some elements of traders or whatever, right? There's so many things. There's like that's a
Yeah.
whole box that's not even worth
For
unpacking. But
sure.
just at surface level, then it means that all the normal people can continue playing the regular game as they want, and even the hardcore people can carry on playing the regular game if they want. But there's a second game mode, which in a perfect world that doesn't split the player base and blah blah blah, all
Yeah.
the things that people always shout to me whenever I talk about this. But I think that there's a subset of really hardcore people who've played 10 plus wipes who would really enjoy that experience, right? And it's like really tough, it's really hard, and the gear really matters, and it would
Yeah.
bring some of that back, saying, this is my last 4x. If I
Yeah.
die with this, that's it. I don't have another one.
Yeah.
And you rebalance the loot and stuff to make it more sensible, and
For
the
sure.
ammo and blah blah blah. But I don't know. That's sort of like, that's one way it could go in theory. I don't think
For
they'll ever
sure.
do it, because I don't think they'll split the player
Yeah.
base like that. But there's some kind of problem, is like finding the middle ground is so hard, right? Because they're
Yeah.
slowly removing the secure container without removing the secure container.
Yeah,
They're
they are.
slowly removing the flea without removing the flea.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to tread that line, because you've got people coming into the game that don't know, they don't know how to do any of this stuff. People at the end who are bored, and they can circumvent whatever they put in really easily and just get to the end
Yeah.
game and run whatever they like. It's like, it's so hard to come to that middle ground, which is why I've always thought, it'd be so good if there was somewhere else for people who want the really super serious, you're gonna have arena for
Yeah.
the guys who want to do like meta PvP,
Yeah.
and then you got somewhere for the really super serious survival people to go, afterwards. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just
I mean,
it's a wild fever dream
for
that I
sure.
have.
I mean, even like this doesn't accomplish the same thing, but it's like adjacent is like the ability to prestige and reset
Mhm.
my own
Yeah.
account.
Yeah, we
If
talked about that as
I
well.
if I could prestige, not have to do any of these stupid quests, but have 5 daily quests instead of 3, hell yeah. You know what I mean? Like, because now my second experience is unique. Because I don't think it would
Mhm.
be smart for them to like, okay, you prestige. Now this is 77 new quests. Like that would be a lot of work for them to do to have to do like, or even repeat some quests at a harder. Like I'd love to do Shooterborn in Heaven a second time at 125 meters
Mm.
after completing it because now I'm like, okay, well, what angle? How do I get this extra? And it gives me a bigger reward, a bigger XP reward. So it's like, you know, prestiging could add like a certain amount of quests, in a harder difficulty or like a modified quest system or more daily quests instead of those quests. But when you think about that, like that, how much more of early wipe would it be if, of course, not everybody would do it, right? Some people would want to get to the end and they would want to do it. But if a chunk of the people that have a billion rubles were like, I don't want to do it, like this wipe, Rengar, Smitty Stone, Trey, and Tiggs all deleted their stashes.
Yeah.
Everything. All of it. Because they were bored. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, so it's like that gives me, of course, those are just a few guys, but that gives me a good reason to believe that a chunk of the Chads would prestige if it gave them some cosmetics that nobody else had.
Mhm.
And yeah, dude, a freaking golden dog tag, whatever, dude, an armband, some
Did
tops or bottoms for Bear and USEC have a specific top and bottom that only prestige people can get. Like, people would do that. People go to the ends of the earth for cosmetics, all right? People get the tracksuit. That's the stupidest thing. Like, you've got to be a degenerate. And I know Rengar just did it, and he says he's a
Yeah.
degenerate. To go find Killa that many times right now, you are a degenerate if you have tracksuit. But people do it. They will go to the ends of the earth. So give them a few cosmetics, freaking delete their stashes, and don't have to have that happen to Timmy. You know what I mean? Like, and now we've got a much more, like you were saying, there's a very specific curve of like you've got these guys that are at high level, you've got these guys that are mid level, you've got these guys that are new. That spreads that out a little bit because sometimes guys at the end hit the beginning again, and then they move through that curve a second time, maybe a
Mhm.
third time. Like it just that's where my brain is at. It's like, yeah, of
Yeah.
course, we're gonna wipe in a few months, I'm sure. But that's where my brain is at. It's like, wouldn't all of these or some of these or any combination of these things be infinitely more effective at like extending the vibe of the early game? Or at least, and here's another dangerous thing. Tarkov isn't supposed to be the early game forever. Tarkov is supposed to be unexpected forever. So in the early game, you're never going to run into a guy with a wrist tee and a slick. But
Mhm.
I would posit that the truest Tarkov is you never know if you're going to run into a guy with a wrist tee and a slick. And spreading this out kind of helps that, in my opinion. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think Prestige actually is probably a more sensible solution. It's easy to implement as well. It's super easy to
It
implement.
seems
People
easy.
like people would race to get as many prestiges, right? If you did a counter
100%.
or something, you got like a dog tag with like a tally
Dude,
chart on it or something, people would be just like, did 20th
a dog
prestige.
tag with a tally chart and one of the art interns a weekend to create, a cosmetic, a
Right.
top and bottom for prestige 1, a top and bottom for
Mhm.
prestige 2, a top and bottom for prestige 3, and it's game over. And people are racing to get those cosmetics.
Did you
And
see you played Marauders, right? You played the closed
yeah,
beta. Did you see they had prestige tokens that you could
yes.
spend to
And
use
that
on
junk was like
cosmetics?
certain stuff you needed like 27 prestige tokens to buy.
Yeah.
I was like, "What?" Like, it was crazy. It was actually nuts. I've talked with people about tons of ideas. You prestige, you get to keep 1 skill. So, I hit, when do you want to prestige? Do you prestige when you hit 70? That's ridiculous. No, freaking 70 is like 40 million XP. That's dumb. Do you open up a prestige at 50? At 50, I didn't have like right now I've got like 6 skills elite. At level 50, I did not. I only had 1 or 2. So do I main this account a little bit longer to try and get endurance up to 50 so that when I prestige, I get to keep that skill? Or do I prestige now because I want the cosmetic and I get to keep endurance? What like there's some
There's a lot
really
you could
simple
do.
things that you can do that cause people to think and put some
Mhm.
real risk reward into prestiging. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, I don't know, man. It just feels like at this point with so many brains coming up with so many good ideas. At the end of the day, I'm not that wipe is bad. I'm just like, but aren't there better ideas at this point?
Yeah.
This
Mhm.
game's been in development for 5, 6 years. We've wiped a whole lot of times. Like, and I'm not the expert. If they're like, yeah, no, we still need to wipe because database XYZ7, okay, I believe you. I believe you. I don't know how to make a video game. But like, if we're talking about player experience, I'm a player and I've experienced a lot. And I just feel like there's better ideas than just like hit the
Sure.
big red button every 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
That's where, yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah,
So,
Makes
and
sense.
they want that mean that isn't that like the final product? Is this supposed to never wipe? Which, if
so
I take my Tarkov brain now and how things work, I just can't see me playing a wipeless Tarkov. But
yeah, it depends. Like the most recent official documentation says
mm.
that there's going to be servers that never wipe, servers that wipe
Oh right.
seasonally, and the arena, which people say you can split the player base. I kind of just don't buy that as an excuse to
Mhm.
not do these things, right? Like once again, DayZ has a thriving community and there's like 67,000 servers. They're not all
Yeah.
full, but like
Right.
some, yeah, I don't know. I just like don't, you know what I mean? At this point, when there were 3,000 concurrent players, splitting the player base was a very real concern. When at a wipe, there's 250,000 concurrent players,
Yeah.
it's not a concern to me because once again, we're splitting the player base because we're giving the player more options. Giving the player
Right.
more options excites more players and would
Mhm.
introduce more people never think about that. It's like, well, if you give the arena, it would split the player base. Yeah, but what if it also added 100,000 new players?
Yeah, for
Then
sure.
did
Some
anything
people would
really
just
happen?
join just to try the arena and just to see
And
what
people
that's
that
like.
left because they can't get over the Giga Chads come back because it's
Right.
better. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I just don't really buy that. So you know what I mean? I can see that being a thing where like there's like seasons and every season like it's that would have to be done right where it's not just the same. It's not just the same quests. This
Mhm.
season, Elvira died and there is no therapist. This season is more of a hardcore and the traders took a break. You know what I mean? This season this happened. You would never have to play your seasonal character. You might skip a season because you didn't like the challenge, but that didn't mean you didn't have a Tarkov to play. You could still play this where you could prestige and there's a whole lot of things
Right.
to do.
Right.
You could
Right.
hop into this season. If you get to level 50 in this season, you get another special cosmetic that meant you got to level 50 in this season. There's no reason to do it if you're not excited about the season. If you are excited about the season, you're overwhelmed with things to do, not frustrated with how little things to do there are. And anytime you wanted to take a break, you could go play the arena. I don't get how people think that's not good. Like, you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
sounds like the best thing ever. You know what I mean? I don't know. And if it was open world, I would put me in the metaverse, put me in the Tarkov metaverse. I'd never want to leave. It would be perfect.
Imagine Tarkov with the Rift. Oh god, I don't
Dude,
even.
oh my God, that would be the most insane thing ever. So, so yeah, I think there's potential, you know, I guess we'll just see. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
They seem to be sprinting towards the finish line in certain ways. So we'll see how that goes.
I love that you're
Exactly.
talking about these things and ideas and putting it out there because I remember watching the podcast early on, and Jesse was, in my opinion, you're a little bit more reserved, but ever since like sometime in between
Dude.
Civilian Flea and then like a little bit before that, like you just been hitting banger and banger ideas. Like I really wanted to talk to you about keys today, dude, but we didn't get to it. Maybe
Oh,
another
that
time.
did you watch that video? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes,
Dude,
yes,
that
yes.
that video bombed. Everybody in the comments hated it, but I
Oh,
still think it's a great
really?
idea. Oh, yeah, I was
What?
like, "Screw you guys." I was like, "This will be
Dude.
great." But everybody hated it, and they told me
Yeah.
how much it would be a bad idea. But that's the game, right? That's
Oh,
YouTube. I
yeah.
don't do that often. I did it with the Civilian Flea. Like,
Mhm.
I don't do that often because in general, I'm just like, who am I to think have an idea that would benefit everybody. Like I'm just one guy.
Sure.
But I did that twice. I did it with the civilian fleet where I was like, this is an idea and I think it would be sick. And I put it out there and the response to that was really good. And then I did the key one and I was like, this is an idea and I think it would be sick. And everyone's like, nope. And I was like, all right, maybe it was just me. Okay. Like, okay.
That's
Sure.
hilarious.
So
Now I want to go back and read some of the comments. I did not know that. That's funny. But no, I can just appreciate and respect, the audacity to even like discuss things. And again, you're not an expert. You're not claiming to have all solutions, but you're attempting something. You know what I mean? It's not like you're trying to provide as much criticism and feedback as you can through your own personal experience, and that's just to have a better game that we all can enjoy, and that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been fun.
Dude, we have been going for 3 hours. Like, I can't believe it. The thing is, I'm still having fun, and there's still like 2 hours of stuff I want to talk about. But
I know.
like, it's honestly, it's always this way. It's crazy. It's crazy. But honestly, we'll have to do this again. Like, thank you so much for coming on, man. Honestly, it's been super sick. It's been really great. I mean, this is like I said just beforehand, but like I hadn't started up the stream or anything then. But like, this is the first time we've actually spoken.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I say face to face, but properly or whatever. Despite being in the same circles for so long, like it's just a weird thing of the internet. But super big thanks for coming on. It's been awesome. And
dude, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I can talk about this stuff forever. You know what I mean? And I love it. And I think that's the thing. It's like sometimes I'm like, Jesse, you're such a freaking nerd. Like all you think about is this freaking video game. You know what I mean? But then I'm like, I don't care. I love it. So thank you guys for having me. And dude, I would love to. Like it's been great talking to you guys. I love hearing different perspectives and like going back to what you said about like doing that that podcast with the Chads. Like I think just about any time people get together and talk about it, it sets a better example than Twitter. You know what I mean? So it's like this is the kind of like discourse and discussion, and like you can be super critical of the game and love it, and not be critical of Nikita as a human being or Battlestick Games as a developer. You know what I mean? And anytime, just about anytime you get humans on a call together to talk about it, at the end of the day, whether you're a Chad, whether you're a Rat, whether you're brand new to the game, whether you've been playing for 67,000 hours, we all generally want the same things, you know what I mean? And want the game to be pushed forward. So I love stuff like this because I think anytime anybody gets to see stuff like this, it benefits the larger community some small amount.
Yeah, bit by bit.
Bit by bit. Yep. So thank you guys for having me. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for coming on, man. It was a blast. And with that, everyone, we'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Catch you later.